And welcome back to Live Now from Fox. As we are following some breaking news just in our newsroom here, the CIA releasing new information on the assassination of Senator Robert F. Kennedy. Now, we do have a statement from the CIA that I am going to pull up your screen here in just a moment. It's pretty lengthy, so bear with us here. We do want to get all that information to you. So there it is on your screen. I'm going to read verbatim what is in this press release. So today, the CIA released 54 declassified documents related to Senator Robert F. Kennedy's assassination, consistent with President Donald J. Trump's Executive Order 14176. This release provides an additional 1,450 pages of historic material that the agency is making available to the public for the very first time. These documents complement the thousands of pages that CIA provided to the Office of the Director of National Intelligence and National Archives and Records Administration as part of their public releases related to former President John F. Kennedy from earlier this year. The records reveal for the first time that Senator Kennedy shared his experiences traveling to the former Soviet Union with CIA, reflecting his patriotic commitment to serving the country. CIA remains dedicated to fulfilling President Trump's mandate to release all records related to the assassination of Senator Kennedy, and today's efforts represent another significant step toward achieving that goal.
All right.
Yeah.
And look at this. There's three of us
Hey,
today.
now there's three of us all of a sudden. What the hell?
Yeah, what's going on
welcome,
here?
Robert. Welcome.
Yes, indeed. We got Netanyahu trying to drag us into a new war.
Well, you don't have to go in. There's been 8 other wars that we didn't get involved in.
Yeah, hopefully we stay out. Hopefully we stay out completely.
I don't know why this one's, to be honest with you, I don't know why this one's any different. I mean, when Israel took out the Syrian nuclear plant and they took out the Iraqi plant, now taking out the Iranian, hopefully whatever's left of their nuclear program. I mean, we didn't get involved other than intelligence, I presume, right, Robert?
Yes, and presumably that's what Trump wants to continue.
Yeah.
I think Netanyahu wants us to get involved.
What he wants doesn't really matter. I mean, he could want, to have hookers every day too, but it doesn't. I don't think Trump's going to take the bait. Like you probably think.
I hope not. I think there's a lot of pressure on him to do so. I think what Netanyahu wants is regime change in Iran.
Well, it wouldn't hurt. Let me say, it wouldn't hurt, Robert.
Would it? I mean, how did regime change work in Libya? How did it work in Syria? How did it work in Iraq? Netanyahu was dead wrong about all of it. He's been predicting things about Iran for 25 years. He's been wrong for 25 years.
No, I'm just saying
that if we took out Saddam Hussein, we would have beautiful peace flourishing across the Middle East.
How many theocracies do the people of Iran really want?
Oh, I'm not a fan of the Iranian regime. I'm just saying, assuming.
No. I'm just saying, if it happens, it would be a great thing. I mean, if you could take.
That's my point. My point is, we may get worse leadership. We may get
and the Khomeinis
everywhere. It's gotten worse.
I don't know if you could
better
be
anywhere.
Okay, I don't know if a brutal theocracy is any worse than Assad in Syria than what we have now in Syria. I mean, you had a certain amount of worse.
I think Syria.
No, I agree. I agree, because we allowed them to topple a fairly stable guy, so we could take Syria out of the grasp of Russia. As you know, we kind of stole one there in the fog of war. But I don't think anybody's rooting for Iran to get a nuclear weapon.
No, but I think the issue is this about what this Israeli attack is, or is it a regime change effort? Because the focus point appears to be killing a bunch of Iranian leaders.
I think the other part is gravy, and nobody wants Iran to get a nuclear weapon. And I think Trump negotiated in good faith as long as he could possibly go, Robert, right? He went about 60 days with them. And then, look, if you can't make a deal, if Trump can't make a deal with you, it may not be makeable.
Sure, but the other problem, the other big risk for Trump here isn't just the war. It's oil prices going through the roof, cost of living getting out of control.
When you say war,
his entire administration falling apart out of the inception.
No, but when you say
Netanyahu
war,
always wants to do whatever the hell he wants to do.
No, when you say war, you mean the 4 days of surgical strikes?
I mean, if it continues to escalate,
or the
Ukraine
war,
talking about squeezing the Strait of Hormuz and taking other action.
Right. But that's all. Prognostication that may or may not happen. The Ukraine war, as you and I have said, has been an ultimate bloodbath, the level of World War II. I think that's a little bit more interesting than this surgical strike by the Israelis going after the insane leadership of Iran, but for the most part, trying to prevent them from creating a nuclear weapon like they did with Syria and like they did with Iraq. This would be the third one. I don't know what happened in the first two, but they didn't get nuclear weapons.
That's assuming it doesn't expand. And the major gamble here is assuming that their I don't believe Netanyahu's focus is on nuclear weapons. I think it's regime change.
Oh, come on.
I think that's where he's
Robert,
going.
come on. Every Israeli leader.
It's what he's been about his whole life. His whole career.
Israeli
his whole
leader,
career. Netanyahu is champion regime change. He was the one. He pushed Assad out. He helped push Assad out. How did that work for him? Did that help Israel?
He wasn't even in power at the time. But every single Israeli leader has had the same political point of view on nuclear weapons falling into the hands of their enemies. I mean, it could be Golda Meir right now, and she would have attacked Iran. It could have been any of them. They would have attacked Iran.
Maybe.
I don't think Netanyahu is special in that regard. His approval rating is high. The military approval rating and politically in Israel is pretty high in the 60s. I mean, this is their situation. I'm not threatened by a nuclear weapon like they are. I mean, if these maniacs got a nuclear weapon, I think we'd all be in danger around the world. Who knows who they would give it to?
Well, but that's the other aspect of this. In terms of the continuing to escalate conflict around the world, which is what Lindsey Graham wants. China and Russia can just give Iran nuclear weapons anytime they want.
Look, he doesn't run our foreign policy. Trump does. We voted for Trump.
Maybe. I mean, here you have, look at what happened back-to-back weeks. The first you get Trump proposing Istanbul peace talks, and then all of a sudden there's a drone attack on Russia. And Trump says, no, it wasn't me. Okay, if it wasn't you, then who is actually running your government?
Well, I would look at
MI6 on Sunday. With Iran, and all of a sudden we get attacked. We weren't even given enough notice to get our people out. We were given 24 to 36 hours before this attack. That's not enough time to get people out. We're just hoping Iran doesn't counter retaliate against us.
Look at the target of the drone attack, Robert. It was long-range bombers sitting there gathering dust because they were not being used in that conflict. Those long-range bombers have one goal, and that's London. MI6 carried out that attack on those bombers that were sitting there, not used in this war.
I know, but what I'm saying is it looks bad. You're seeing a whole bunch of people. I don't necessarily agree with their interpretation, but that looks like, Trump will get you in negotiation to set you up for a sabotage attack because it's now happened back to back in a tight time frame. Hey, come do peace talks with me, Iran. Oh, surprise attack. Come do peace talks.
Wait. It wasn't. Wait. How long did he negotiate with Iran, Robert? How long?
Say again.
How long did Trump negotiate with Iran?
Oh, yeah, several months. But
well, it's not a surprise.
I don't dispute that. But the point is, you can't be saying right now there's a popular perception that Trump's word is not worth anything, that either he's not in control of his own administration or he lies to people to get them into peace talks that you should just ignore because he won't follow through. Because instead, he'll use it as a sabotage attack. This is not good for Trump on the global stage. It just isn't.
You lost your mic.
I'd rather have Israel doing this than us. And I think that's essentially what Trump is endorsing here. We're not doing it. We're not putting boots on the ground. We're not striking Iran. His pit bull is doing it. And he warned them of his pit bull. And he said, I want to make a deal with you to get rid of your nuclear program. And at the end, they told him to go fuck himself.
Well, there's disagreements on that aspect.
Okay. Well, we don't know yet. It just happened 5 minutes ago.
You look at the knock-on effects. The assumption that the pro-Israel side has, well, it's one of twofold. The neocons want it to extend to a global war. There's no doubt about that. Lindsey Graham can't wait for that to happen. And what they're doing, combine that with the sanctions proposal that he has that's not really on Russia, but it's on India and China to buy Russian oil. Gas prices would make 1970s look great by comparison.
Dude,
this would crush Trump.
I live in a 650. I live in a 650 a gallon socialist state.
That's the risk that we're taking by having Israel to this preemptive early attack.
My guess
when there was no basis by Tulsi Gabbard, no reason. I mean, Netanyahu's been saying Iran's going to get nuclear weapons since 1995.
I don't think it's just Netanyahu.
They're just about to get it. All that guy does is lie, 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 lie. He loves regime change. He loves war. Trump should not risk his presidency for that nut job.
Go ahead.
But that's my take.
Okay, well, it's a pretty good take, I guess. I have a different opinion, but it's cool. But okay, can we get to RFK now that you got your rant out of the way there?
Yeah.
Okay, so we had a release today by your friend Tulsi Gabbard, who I strongly support. And Tulsi Gabbard released a lot of documents, unlike the Luna Committee, which has bungled this thing, and Pam Bondi has bungled this thing. Tulsi, Robert, has done it the right way. She's done it twice. She's done it clean. She's done it really, by the book. Here are the documents. Let me get out of the way. Why don't you have a look at them on the RFK CIA documents? So I started to have a look at them this morning. There's quite a bit of meat on that bone, Robert, as his son acknowledged, apparently, that his father was interviewed when he returned from the Soviet Union, unlike Lee Harvey Oswald, Robert, who apparently was not even interviewed, according to the Warren Commission, when he returned from the Soviet Union. But there's a couple of things in there that I thought were of interest because we were talking about this subject today. This is obviously a shot of the assassination here in the Ambassador Hotel.
This is the article covering it with the CIA.
Oh, about them interviewing him.
And
okay, so
Kennedy must fall document.
I'm just going to go through a couple that I've cherry picked out of here. One is from the Office of Security, 1975. A lot of this, Robert, is coming out because of the committees and commissions that were starting to explore this, including Frank Church. So there, you see them responding to the Frank Church stuff in 1975, and that involves Martin Luther King also, and JFK, and the Sirhan case. So it says the Office of Security ran the names of Enrique, Hank Hernandez, and Manny Pena. Variants of these names were also checked. Results were negative. I mean, it's a short document, but it's trying to clear the CIA from the two LAPD intelligence unit stovepiping investigators at the top of the LAPD intelligence squad. And that was Hank Hernandez, Enrique Hank Hernandez, who was a sergeant, and Manny Pena, also known as Manny Shoot 'em Up Pena, who later became a captain. Both admitted that they were trained by the CIA. Both were trained at the farm, Camp Peary, Hernandez being this lie detector expert who was sent to Central and South America to work for dictators under CIA tutelage in the late 60s and 70s. And then Pena, I think he killed like 3 or 4 guys as an on-the-job cop in LAPD. But these two guys are here in this document being cleared of not even having their names in any CIA data bank. Now, granted, this is 7 years later, Robert. So they may have cleaned.
What year is that document?
75. So this is literally.
So they were. So who is communicating to who in the document?
In the document, this is a request for documents from the Frank Church Committee, and this is signed by William Katapish, Deputy Director of Security for Policy and Management. These are being released in full at this time under the JFK Act in 1999. Now, this one is interesting because it is a memorandum, again, for the Deputy Director of Security, in this case, Robert Gambino. Reference is made to the questions concerning agency involvement with Sirhan by a Mr. Dan Rather of CBS during a recent interview with Mr. Colby. They are all over this thing with Dan Rather. Dan Rather was apparently doing some special in 1975 on all 3 assassinations, and they were completely spooked by this. Specifically, the Office of Security was asked if there was any record of the agency working with Sergeant Enrique Hank Hernandez or Lieutenant Manny Pena of the Los Angeles Police Department concerning assassination of Robert Kennedy. The office previously responded that we had no record of this. Attached is a memo regarding that, which is that memo. Okay. There's this guy, Bernard Fensterwald, Robert. Maybe you've heard of him. He was a member of the Washington Bar. He was a spooky lawyer who ended up in a lot of these assassination cases, ended up being on like the committee to avoid political assassinations and blah, blah, blah. But here, this is very interesting. The comments made by subject in Mark's section of the attached newspaper clipping in question originated from a highly sensitive intelligence operation, which was conducted in October 1963 by the agency and Mexican security authorities against the Soviet and Cuban embassies in Mexico. However, the material was not withheld from the Warren Commission. It should be noted that Oswald was in no sense under investigation, and that at no time during his stay in Mexico City did the CIA acquire a photograph of Oswald. Now, they claimed in this particular article, the agency has 12 different photographs of one individual, possibly an American as yet unidentified, who was observed entering the Soviet embassy and later the Cuban embassy. A cropped photograph was introduced to the Warren Commission. That's the one we have, Eric, that we usually see of supposedly Lee Harvey Oswald. The Warren Commission and its staff were made fully aware in the course of their inquiry at headquarters and in Mexico City of the origins of the photograph and the fact that we had additional photographs of the same individual taken at different times in Mexico City. Now, here's the rub. At one point, our chief of station in Mexico City, David Atlee Phillips, suggested that the man in the photograph was Oswald. However, this proved not to be the case, Robert. It should be noted, and this is the part I like, that Mr. Fensterwald in 1971 and 72 was actually shown 2 of the 12 photographs, Robert, during his visit to CIA headquarters. Why this lawyer is visiting CIA headquarters, they don't realize what they just did to this guy, who we've always suspected of being a spook attorney, on their list of go-to lawyers, Robert, that they have, a cleared list. He had wormed his way into all 3 assassinations at one point, Fensterwald. All coverage of CIA of Oswald's stay in Mexico City was technical. The station had no live source coverage, either unilateral or the Mexican liaison. It goes on. This is from John Waller, CIA. This was released yesterday. French terrorist reportedly in Dallas the day JFK was slain. We kind of knew this one. I was saying to Eric, this is John Sutra, who was preparing to assassinate France's President Charles de Gaulle, Robert. He was arrested in Dallas that day, released, and then he fled to Mexico, and French intelligence was looking for him. This was from the Detroit, Michigan paper at the time, also of great value. Then they have just a great stuff on this report, which is a special report on communist propaganda around the world after the RFK assassination, Robert. Different newspapers around the world, how they were taking this thing. But anyway, a real treasure trove of stuff for myself to go through over the. This is from Frank Church's committee, looking at a guy that we've covered named Jim Braden. This is a guy that was arrested in the Daltex building, coming out of the Daltex building moments after Kennedy was shot. This is a letter from him to Frank Church. There's a bunch of photos. He had various names and identities that he used. He is the only man who was linked to both assassinations. He lived in Beverly Hills during the time of the RFK assassination. Here's a photo of Jim Braden, aka Eugene Hill Brading, sought by Jim Garrison during the Garrison investigation. He's the only guy linked to both assassinations, Robert.
Was that the guy that there was somebody that did they did a mini documentary on, that was an old guy that was tied to a bunch of stuff? Is that tied to him at all, or no? He looks familiar.
That I don't know, but he was mobbed up with Roselli and a bunch of other guys, and he was arrested in Dealey Plaza. He was also arrested the night that RFK was killed because he was in LA and around the Ambassador Hotel. He's the only guy in American history linked to both assassinations.
Whatever happened to him ultimately?
Ultimately, he married 6 different women and he stole their money. That was his mob thing. That's what he specialized in Beverly Hills with Roselli. They were involved in I don't know how to explain this, but I'll just tell you. They were involved in a phony card game at the Friars Club with holes in the wall, allowing them to see the wealthy Jewish members' cards and rolling them for hundreds of thousands of dollars, Robert. And that lawyer who defended them in that case ended up defending Sirhan.
Oh.
You can't make this stuff up, bro. There's a lot of stuff here. We'll get into it in the next couple of weeks, but I just wanted to touch on it because
how many documents in all were released?
Oh, there's like 12,000 different file folders. So it's going to take a while.
So there's more documents within.
There's quite a few in there.
So probably, like I said, 50,000, 100,000.
Yeah, it's probably about 20,000. 20,000
pages.
Yeah.
From what you've seen so far, what do you think the premise? Why were these documents classified for so long?
I think they would. These is my opinion. Is these are just the bottom of the barrel that's left, and she's cleaning house.
But I was like, what? Why was a newspaper article from Detroit considered classified?
Well, I think because of the subject matter about Sutra, this had been rumored for many, many years that he was arrested, which he was, in Dealey Plaza a day after the assassination, and then the French intelligence wanted him because he was involved in attempts on de Gaulle's life, and they had let him go, and he went to Mexico City, where he then committed 2 bank robberies. This guy was like the equivalent of the Weather Underground, but the French version, Robert.
Interesting. The fact that they were tracking it, they considered classified, even if the underlying source document is public.
Exactly, because like I've said many times on the show, the stuff that's at the bottom of the barrel is international, and I don't mean that international like they're guilty. It's international involving other countries, and they withheld these to save face with these other countries for decades, especially with Mexico. Australia is another big one. The French also, they've withheld. Not that these documents reveal anything, but they reveal that these other countries are in the mix. In other words, we use Mexican intelligence to torture this Sylvia Duran. The documents are there indicating that we ordered them to torture Sylvia Duran. Well, we ran Mexican intelligence, so you don't want that to come out. It's a little embarrassing, even in 2025, Robert. So once you get into the bottom, you start to see stories of international scope. Let me just sum it up that way.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well,
but anyway, there's plenty of other news in the domestic sphere.
Yeah, how are things with you?
Well,
still a curfew in your neighborhood?
I consider this week not a successful week for Trump, in that it started out with he's in excellent position because the LA riots are politically unpopular. It's not.
Well, let's look at those riots for a second. I wanted to start domestically, then we can expand nationally and then internationally if you want to go back to that. But let's start with the domestic situation on the ground. How do you see what's going on? Tomorrow, you've got Barack Obama Appreciation Day. You've got 30 to 50,000 people descending upon New York City. The same thing in Los Angeles and 25 other cities, possibly funded by the Walmart heir, who's worth apparently $17 billion, Eric, the last time I looked. How do you see tomorrow unfolding, Robert, in terms of protest on the ground, this No Kings protest? Let's just start with that.
So I think that the protester reflects sort of regime change politics from the Soroses of the world that has been very successful. In the same sense you're saying why people could assume that the Israel attacks won't expand, is you look at what happened with the attacks on when Syria or Iraq or others have had nuclear capacity that did not extend into either an oil shock or a regional war or a global war. It's the same reason why Soros believes these regime change efforts are more likely to work than fail, is because mostly around the world they've succeeded. So, probably the most illustrative recent example would be the Maidan coup in Ukraine in 2014, where similarly they stage mass protests that then become riots.
Right. The color revolutions is what you're referring to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that it's his version of regime change politics.
Was he subpoenaed this week? Did you hear that Soros was subpoenaed to
Somebody
testify?
claimed that, but I haven't seen
I know
or others yet confirm that.
So
it looks like Hawley is investigating using his committee out of the Senate, and that's a good one to have in charge. And then Luna, we'll see. You've mentioned she's been a little up and down on how she's handled the Kennedy files. Well, what's she's promising an uber aggressive approach.
Right.
I think she's kind of a novice to a lot of this, is my political take, but what's
take.
been your review of her and how she's handled the Kennedy stuff?
Well, like I said, I mean, unless you bring in witnesses and have a specific topic. In other words, the way I would handle this is you give all the people on the staff something to look at, like Oliver Stone's documentary, Destiny Betrayed, let's say. You give them that, it covers the autopsy. It's almost like a cliff notes of the assassination. And you say, watch this. You got a couple of weeks to get this together. You watch this. We're bringing in people who are featured in this doc. And that includes doctors from Parkland. That includes FBI agents. That includes maybe even Oliver himself and some other people. She needs some structure to what she's doing. There seems to be just no structure. So you've got Crockett just yelling out crazy crap. And then some other girl who showed up who was a woman writing a book on Kennedy from 1958. I mean, it seems like it's structureless is my main thing. And I hope she does RFK. I really do, because that has much more structure to it. That's got a clean autopsy. That's got LAPD. That thing could be discerned and boiled down with Thane Eugene Caesar and a friend that you like named RFK Jr., who could actually testify about meeting with Sirhan. And then both of us with Sirhan's parole, how Newsom put the stop to it. Now I think he's the oldest living man in the California penal system, Robert, and since he's been in there since 1968. So that has more structure to it.
I got you. So it sounds like her staffing is weak, is what?
Yeah, you know what?
Right. Definitely.
Yeah, I think that's it. And then, the optics of it are not good. She doesn't know how to cinematically put on a thing. You could be showing clips on the screen of Oliver Stone's documentary, Destiny Betrayed, just 2-minute clips. You're on TV. Don't have a gigantic empty room there where you're 17 miles from the witnesses. I mean, look at the church committee. Look at the Watergate committee. Remember how dramatic that looked? Everybody was jammed in there. There were people in there, and it looked like there was energy in the room. This looks like they're testifying from Brooklyn, a mile away, the way the optics is set up. And that might just be her lack of experience, Bob.
Yeah, because I mean, you reviewed a lot of the church committee stuff. The best work that came out of both the Assassinations Committee and Church Committee was by their key staffers. They had smart lawyers involved. And in fact, when some of those were removed is when those committees sort of declined in their efficacy because of some of those committee members that's what it's what Bondi needs, other people need. You need really good people who understand the system behind the scenes to make it all work. Otherwise, it ends up, not. And so my concern is that I'm glad she's investigating.
Yeah.
But I don't want to see a replication of the lack of effective presentation that she did in the Kennedy case repeated with someone like George Soros. If you could subpoena Soros and bring him before the House, there's so much to talk to that guy about.
But you got to have the background information. In other words, when they had the House Assassinations Committee hearings, they had a guy who testified last week to her, and the guy's name was Dan Hardway. Dan Hardway was in the original House Assassinations Committee. He was a staffer, like you're talking about. He was a second-year law student at Cornell. He was hungry as a pit bull, and he had another guy named Ed Lopez, who was also one of the staffers. These guys were young law students, Ivy League law students, Robert, in that period of time, 1977, 78, who really dove in like savages.
It was the way Robert Kennedy Sr. chose to staff the Justice Department. They called him Kennedy's boys. I was taught by one of them in evidence class. But one reason why they were uniquely effective was he picked a bunch of smart, skilled, relatively fearless people. If you're going to go after Hoffa and you're going to organize crime, you're going to go after. They were secretly going after LBJ, as you've talked about.
Yeah.
They
were leaking stuff on LBJ left and right.
Well, they're trying to get him in the Bobby Baker indictment to blow back on him.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
I'll give Kennedy credit for trying to maneuver through that with a guy like Johnson in the vice president's office.
Well, they wanted to flip Bobby Baker.
Yes,
that's what their game was.
And the chutzpah. But if you're going after Johnson, that's I understand why he was doing it, but that was a high risk.
Yeah, we saw the results.
We saw the results.
Exactly.
He told everyone, he said, I'm going to cut his throat with his finger if it's the last thing I do regarding RFK. Now, you could take that as a threat or you could take it as political dogma, but nevertheless, it happened.
Oh yeah. No. I mean, is it really a coincidence he got assassinated while LBJ was president?
No, of course not. I mean, Hoover had assigned at LBJ's request 35 FBI agents to track his every move the last 2 years of his life. Even going back to 1964 at the convention in Jersey, where he got that standing ovation, and it drove LBJ insane.
Yes, exactly. Now, doesn't Stone kind of loosely portray that as a meeting between Nixon and Hoover at a horse racing track in his movie Nixon?
Oh,
remember that? Yeah, where it's like, it's okay to take out another Kennedy. And now I don't think Stone had at the time had the stones, so to speak, to point the finger at LBJ as well.
In fact, nobody does. I mean, that's what our that's our contention.
Well,
on the
Roger
channel.
Stone's happy to, but of course
Roger Stone's happy too, and there are others of prominence who have written about it. But for the most part, and I've said this a number of times on the show, history of JFK assassination is written by the far left. The books and nobody gets this, bro. David Talbot, who wrote Brothers, he wrote Devil's Chessboard.
Which is a great book.
Yeah, because he's a great writer.
Yes.
It doesn't mean it's true. You're talking about the editor-in-chief of Mother Jones, Robert, of the San Francisco Examiner, of
his
Salon.
Stuff on the Dulles brothers was really good.
Absolutely, dude. He's a great writer. Right? Nobody disputes that. Nobody, but
he doesn't want to touch LBJ which is ironic because the hard left at the time hated LBJ in 1960, at least back in 67, 68.
Yes.
They never trusted him all the way back.
Right.
And then really despised him in by 68. You know, LBJ, how many babies did you kill today? And that was hard left war pro. And yet the vestiges of that want to blame everybody but LBJ for the complicity in the Kennedy. I mean, both Kennedys get assassinated while he is president. Martin Luther King gets assassinated while he is president.
Yep.
Malcolm X gets assassinated while he's president. I mean, is it a coincidence?
Yeah, as far as they will go,
vice president or president, everybody prominent gets murdered in that 4-year time frame.
I mean, is it too much to even raise the question, Robert?
I know it's. I kind of get it because I grew up on the sort of populist left political perspective, and for that LBJ, because of the Civil Rights Act, because of the Voting Rights Act, because of trying to do something on healthcare and college. You know, he developed this reputation within the sort of loosely the populist left that was sympathetic with him, and thus didn't want to see the other side of LBJ, that he personified deep state Democratic old Southern Party corruption.
Well, it's even beyond that. I mean, it gets to the point of murder. It gets to the point of taking Mac Wallace on board, a convicted murderer. He is Biden on steroids. Biden's just financially corrupt.
Well, that's why I said Biden is LBJ but retarded.
Yes, absolutely.
I think that really.
I mean, Nixon said it best. We both wanted to be president in the worst way, but he was willing to murder to get there, and I wasn't.
Which, by the way, I know a buddy of mine grew up homeless in the streets of New York City at Yale, who he told me, you know, who my two favorite presidents are, Barnes. I was like, who? He goes, I was a big Huey Long fan. So he said FDR and LBJ. He goes, why is that? He goes, because they had the balls to kill the other guy.
That's pretty funny.
Leave it to a New York Italian to see the world that way.
Well, when they went and told FDR that Whittaker Chambers was a communist spy, that Chambers and what's his name were the communist spies, and he just had a big, huge laugh. He never met a communist he didn't like, FDR, apparently. I had no idea. I mean, the entire administration.
Well, he also loved Mussolini, wrote love letters.
Right, yeah. I mean, what a strange guy. And again, history is written by the left. When you look at even recently with Meacham and some of these guys who were literally writing speeches for Joe Biden. I mean, these guys were so up Joe Biden's ass, these so-called mainstream historians, Robert. They've been completely discredited.
What really helped LBJ was getting Goodwin on his side early.
Yeah.
That, she helped set the course for how all liberal historians would thereafter approach LBJ.
Right. Even though she just had to move over because it's her president.
I know. I mean, she banged him. I mean, what a scandal that is at multiple levels, and yet it's completely suppressed.
Well, don't forget her husband, Dick Goodwin, who tried to resign and had a professor's job at Oberlin, and he says, "You're not going anywhere. You're going to Saigon, boy." And he goes, "What?" He says, "Yeah, get your combat boots. I put in your requisition orders." And he said, "Nobody leaves LBJ." Including Admiral Berkeley, the physician, the guy running the autopsy. The only guy above Admiral Berkeley running that autopsy was LBJ. And Berkeley put in for retirement right after the autopsy. And LBJ said, no fucking way. Now you're my personal physician. Berkeley didn't get to resign to the day LBJ left office, Robert.
Yep. No doubt about that.
Yeah.
Someone asked what I mean by Trump having a bad week. I didn't think his statements late in the week helped him on immigration related to Chinese students. Or saying, hey, don't worry, I'm going to carve out what sounds like. I'm going to carve out an exception for illegal immigrants that work for my rich buddies.
I thought that's on my list. What was that?
That I found. I mean, I think it's a weak link of Trump. Partially he's trying to control whatever's happening globally, whatever you attribute that to, whatever it is, but it's things that are not easily staying within his control. Yeah. And while that's happening, then he gets a China trade deal. China requires, as part of the trade deal, that he agreed to at least 500,000 Chinese student visas into the U.S., which tells you that these students are not coming on their. There's
already 300,000. What do they want, an increase?
Yes, 500,000.
No, get out.
Yeah, 500,000. And apparently Trump has agreed to this. That as part of the agreement,
increase in students.
Yeah, knowing that, and then he bragged about it. It's like, I'll give credit to Trump for learning its leverage.
Yeah.
But what that tells you is that the Chinese Communist Party is sending these students, like Chinese law requires, to spy and steal from Americans.
Well, the reports from my intel people in New York are saying that they followed the money to communist China, $5,000 a week for the leaders of the protests in New York, Robert.
So the China show actually is discussing that today. Great work by Data Republican online on X. And it's good that people are finally picking up in the mainstream court of public opinion that this is all about, not because the FBI's original approach was, we're just going to arrest these front guys.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's not going to get you anywhere.
Right.
That if you want to stop this, you've got to curtail the monies and organizers. You've got to make Democratic Party hacks think they're at risk. You've got to make these NGOs know that they're at risk. You take away the money, these things aren't spontaneous anymore.
Well, speaking of spontaneous and Democratic Party hacks, what did you make of that Padilla show yesterday at the Nome press conference? What'd you make of this?
They appear to blow. It's part of kind of loosely regime change politics. We're seeing an example of what we've seen in Europe and the color revolutions, other parts of Central Latin America, Africa, Asia. That this idea that you can create dramatic narratives to take apart the machine. Actually, the Einstein Institute used to teach it. It was this little group out in Massachusetts, funded by support. It was basically a front group for the CIA, but it was teaching people the 5 pillars of power. Actually, great lessons. Right? There's 4 pillars of power, but the 5th pillar of power holds up all 4, and the 5th pillar of power is the perception of power of the top 4. If you can get the top 4, if you can get the public to no longer believe in the legitimacy of their power, then their power can collapse. This was sort of the loose architecture idea. And everything is staged with that in mind. Can you create protests? And so it's like V for Vendetta, where the scene where somebody, the cop overreacts and that triggers the revolt. That it's the same mindset they have. It's what they've taught. They stage the protests. They stage the riots. They stage these kind of events.
Well, this Delaney Hall thing in Newark yesterday, nobody's covering this. I mean, it was like the storming of the Bastille, Robert, in Newark, and they literally freed 4 prisoners.
Correct.
And I mean, what's your take on that?
Well, and it was the exact same place where the congresswoman has now been indicted, but the mayor was let off the hook. But this is what they in order to create a certain sort of chaos, you want to discredit authority. That's the goal. Discredit the existing authority.
Yeah. Defund the police.
Right. Defund the police, take out Trump, change ICE policy, all the rest. And and to reinvigorate the Democratic base and to some cause.
Isn't Alinsky? It's Alinsky tactics too, isn't it?
Oh yeah, very much so. Zelensky does identical things. The Maidan Revolution was a classic example of that. The color orange revolution 10 years prior in Ukraine, was part of that. So Soros is so and his allies are so accustomed to this working that they see 2020 as successful, right? They see the BLM protest, engage the left. Discredited in their view Trump, leading to Trump's loss in the election. So they're trying to repeat it and replicate it. They're rerunning the same script. It's like a bad sequel, because what they don't understand is that the mood and appetite for a sequel isn't there. That people have moderated their views on 2020 and changed their views on Trump. Like when Trump was first there, you could portray them as, you could use the uncertainty around Trump to create a sense of he's president chaos. Remember, that was the whole 2020 campaign.
Sure.
And they're running the same thing. Like you see Mayor Dumbass there in LA.
Tell me about it.
Trying to pitch, say, all of this violence you're seeing is because of Trump. Trump provoked it. Trump created it. Trump instigated it, etc.
Except there's been 20 other riots in 20 years.
Well, not only that. It's after 2020 didn't pan out the way a lot of them did over time. As you got a year, 2 years removed, there was more people unhappy and unsettled. And Trump didn't use the National Guard the first time because people like Milley told him not to.
Yeah.
And he recognizes that was a mistake.
Even in D.C., right? I mean,
correct. Yeah. I mean, there he gave Milley and Pelosi the authority to invoke the National Guard. They just chose not to.
Well, look how quickly the Ninth Circuit issued a stay last night regarding the National Guard issue, Robert.
Yeah. The mistake Newsom's people, well, they didn't have a choice, I suppose, on the timing. But the way these panels operate is you have what's called an emergency appeal panel for each appellate court.
Yeah.
And and they're assigned a couple of weeks in advance. So the panel that's currently assigned all emergency appeals includes two Trump nominees.
Oh, by accident, you're saying?
Yeah, yes. Normally they time these deliberately.
Yeah.
So that they try to not have an emergency appeal while that kind of they wait until Clinton appointees or Obama appointees or Bush appointees are up there. And but they couldn't control this because they wanted such quick act. If they'd been smarter, they would have postponed it a week or so.
Right.
But they want it now. They wanted that victory now. And they got Breyer's brother sitting in.
Is that his brother? I thought it was. Yeah. Wow. I didn't know that.
That's his brother. The 83 shouldn't be on the bench. We shouldn't have these old fatigue guys at the district court level, in my view. But is what we that's one way we could consider changing the court processes to impose a mandatory retirement.
Well, let me ask you, are we officially living in a critocracy? I mean, what is the limit? What is the outer limit of what they can rule on at this point against Trump? Using force overseas? I mean, it seems to be there is no area that they have not issued a stand down order from the courts yet. It just seems to expand, Robert. Where is the limit? I mean, when is enough enough? Yeah,
I mean, the Supreme Court hasn't decided the big cases. They decided a couple of cases back to back, 6 cases this Thursday, but the big ones everybody were expecting were not included within those 6.
Right. So are they gonna punk out on this thing, Robert?
I'm curious. I mean, either they salvage the courts or the constitutional confrontation is inevitable.
Right. Let's talk about the second one there, the inevitability. What do you do then if you're Trump? Do you just go Andrew Jackson and say,
yeah? Well, you can use as a perfect example. If they had screwed around with the National Guard one, that would be a good one to use. To say, courts issued his ruling, I have to keep the country safe. It's my constitutional duty. I will continue to instruct and control the National Guard. The court doesn't. Court is not commander in chief. I am under the Constitution, and that commander in chief specifically refers to the militias. By the way, so he's got full legal authority. He's got statutory authority. He's got constitutional authority. Far lesser grounds. I mean, under the Constitution gives Congress the explicit right to call up the militia anytime they want.
Right.
The Congress has in turn delegated that to the president. Makes more sense since he's the commander in chief in general. Under the Constitution, he's the commander in chief of the militia once they're called up. And Congress said, you, Mr. President, get to decide when it's called up. And the Supreme Court has previously ruled that decision is non-reviewable. So this judge's ruling saying somehow now it's reviewable has never been held in the history of the country. This goes back to 1827, the first time this was done. George Washington used this power to suppress the whiskey tax rebellion. By the way, I was on the side of the whiskey tax rebels, but we lost.
I'm sure you were. Your relatives were probably there making the moonshine up in the hills.
Yeah, I had relatives in Rhode Island that were part of the Mossad case.
Well, save that for when you come on my show because I want to go into.
Oh yeah, I was going to give a shout out to the "What's Up" with Lord Buckley. That was a great interview. You got you opened up Hunley.
Dude, I learned more in 2 hours than I did in 4 years, Robert.
Yeah, I know. Usually, I mean, the only other time I saw him open up was when you read that letter and you got Hunley crying. I was like, oh, that's beautiful. That's well done.
But he was crying too, Barnes.
I was crying too, but
I think everybody was crying.
We're gonna take apart Viva on Wednesday and find out what makes him.
Oh, you're gonna get into his serial killer stage.
We're doing the whole full Viva on Wednesday, bro. We're gonna go full Viva.
That'll be great.
Yeah, and then
that was excellent. That was really well done, well presented, good background, good all the rest. And that was fascinating. For those who don't watch it, highly recommend it. You get a good sense of Hunley, the little goat kid, go into the rich kid school.
Yeah,
I was like, I kind of already know how that story ends. I was the poor kid in the rich kid school, and I always tell people, rich people taught me to hate rich people.
Wow.
Because I was in school with them. I was always I was poor kid scholarship everywhere. I was always the broke kid.
Me too. I went to Bard on a scholarship, and first day there, a guy showed up in a chauffeur's outfit out of Sunset Boulevard, and he said, "Where shall I put Master Johnson's belongings?" I said, "Who the fuck is Master Johnson?" He goes, "My young steed." And he brings in this Foot Locker, and I threw it over the top. His father was president of 7-Up. And I said, "You got to get your own room, bro. You can't stay with me." And everybody there, except there was me, a couple of Puerto Ricans, and a black dude who were on scholarship,
Yeah, exactly. I didn't realize that at Yale, you stay in the dorm rooms on old campus. And actually, one room is really big and one room is really small. And so, needless to say, I got stuck in the small room. I had a French roommate that thought I was going to be awesome. And he didn't realize until I got there that I was white. He was so depressed. He thought, I'm going to be cool with a cool Negro. And And he's like, oh, my God, it's a redneck. He goes, oh. He was horrified. So but then it turned out it's the servants' quarters. So at Yale, all the old campus had one room for the student and one room for the servant. The Vanderbilts still have a suite. So
dude, one of my dorms was John Jacob Astor's manor house that I lived in at Bard. Yeah, it was a Waldorf Astoria guy. He donated his mansion to the school, and I lived in one of the servants' quarters. The same thing.
Yes. Well, yeah. The other screw up I thought Trump made was the talking about illegals carving out an exception if you work at a leisure.
No.
That's going to make it look like Trump's rich buddies get an exception. I was like, who gave him the idea that this was smart? Probably Brooke Rollins.
I'll tell you this. I went to the supermarket yesterday. There's a woman at a table, and it said Karen Bass, signatures, blah, blah, blah. So I go over and I go, is this to recall Karen Bass again? And she started laughing. She said, you're the 1,000th person who's asked me that this week. And I go, what is this for? And she says, this is to prevent Karen Bass from creating a $40 minimum wage for the Olympics for hotels and leisure stuff. And I go, really? And in the parking lot are two union people urging people when they got out of their cars not to sign the petition to stop the $40 minimum wage. And I'm going, this is what these people are focused on in the middle of the riots. I mean, it's shocking. She created the smallest curfew area in American domestic history. It was 1 square mile, Robert, of curfew from 8 to 6 a.m. So the protesters went to Koreatown again separately and said, we don't care, we'll go to Koreatown. And the Koreans came out of their houses, and the Koreans don't take kindly.
I was going to say, don't they have, aren't they at the rooftops with rifles?
Yeah, but they just came out on the street and they said, you can't protest here. And all of a sudden there were 800 cops that came out of nowhere to move them out of Koreatown last night. Wow. So now it's a moving buffet of protest that's moving around the city. Instead of keeping it down there contained, it's now spreading outside of downtown.
Interesting. Well, it's going to be hard. I mean, just the nature of the sort of who is rioting and how there's always a group that sees it as an opportunity to engage in and especially 2020, they really escalated to the theft operations that were in disguise. Like, I don't know if we've seen one in Minnesota where this was a couple of weeks into it. They're watching through it, and there's a group of 4 guys who then just break off, go over to the bank.
Yeah.
You can see it in the background. And this was clearly a sophisticated, I had this as a screenplay idea years ago. So that it was to take natural disasters, crime scenes and wars, and use them as a cover for a high-end heist ring.
There is one about floods, hurricane in New Orleans, where I think it might have been a Mark Wahlberg one, where they break into a bank during the flooding of New Orleans and actually do what you just said.
Yeah, I thought. Well, especially
natural
when
disaster.
All the wine, like that was real expensive wine. That's easy to move. It's not as easily trackable or traceable. I was if you'd known in advance, you could have gone in and stolen all the wine because the wine the wine that was left got wrecked by the flood.
Well,
and
in the middle of the protest, they broke into a sushi restaurant. And by the time the last group got into the sushi restaurant, they just came out with chopstick and soy sauce. There was nothing left, Robert. Yeah, they were starting to get tackled by LAPD, but they'd already stolen the money by that point.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering is when the organized people get involved. Because like you've seen some people just use it as an opportunity. Oh, look, let's go grab the Apple phones. Let's go grab this. But remember in 2020, like New York was big. You would see 3 SUVs pop up in front of a jewelry store, and they go in and they do a sophisticated raid using the riots as cover to get away with it because the cops are all distracted, security's all AWOL, everything's, so I mean, they famously did it during the Iraq War. There was a group that had a list that as soon as the Iraq War started, this is the second Iraq War, they came into like the archives and the antiquities, the museums, and they
right. I forgot about that.
Like they did a bunch of stuff, but stole tons of stuff, and they never got caught.
No. Speaking of getting caught, what do you make of this? What do you make about this Garcia pleading not guilty to sex trafficking and whatever? They seem to have a witness who is willing to testify against him. This is what's his name? Khalil Garcia. He's in Tennessee, Robert. The federal
Maryland
charges.
Man is
the Maryland man, as we call him. He apparently was taking down about $100,000 a year in weapons and human smuggling. I mean, I don't know about sex trafficking, but he was helping others to get into the country. Sure. Okay, explain this to me because I can't get my mind around it. Projecting this out, he's found guilty, let's say, by a jury of his Tennessee peers. What happens to this guy?
He's looking at about 15 to 20 years.
So we pay now for him to stay in a federal prison.
Yeah, but I think the logic is twofold. One is to make the courts look bad that they were coming and vouching for him, and the Democratic Party look bad. Yeah. But I think the second is discouraging illegals from taking these cases. In other words, the message that just got sent out is if you want to file a lawsuit with one of these lefty NGOs, you better have nothing in your past because the consequence of you suing for a habeas petition may be 20 years in federal prison. That's right.
But is this a criminal one-off? In other words, are they going to criminally go after others? Or
they're saying that if you embarrass the government with your NGO lefty lawyers getting a crazy judge to issue a ruling, then we're going to put you under microscopic review. And if you have a bad history, you're going to serve 20 years in federal prison for the benefit. I mean, this guy could be hanging out in Guatemala right now. Right. Instead, he's going to do 20 years in federal prison because he listened to some commie lawyers tell him that he could stay in America and keep committing crimes for the next 20 years.
And even if he doesn't, get convicted, he'll be immediately deported to El Salvador anyway.
Oh, he's going to be convicted. I mean,
I'm sure
you see some of the stuff this guy was with. This guy was like the worst. If you're the Democratic Party, you got to find better standard bearers.
They don't have better. This is what they're reduced to.
That's why George Floyd was the last one.
George Floyd
looked like a hero by comparison.
Right. I mean, this guy, if you had better guys, you would use the better guys.
Yeah, well, that's true. But that's where the left is sort of misguided. Like if I was sitting there advising these NLG, National Lawyers Guild, these kind of lawyers, be saying, pick the grandma, find somebody where they really went too far. Pick the 8-year-old. Whatever you do, don't pick the human trafficking, sex trafficking, wife beating, kiddie porn guy who smuggles little kids in for human trafficking purposes. For the worst, I mean, they literally picked the worst. If I was, I would think it was Trump 5D chess if I didn't know any better.
I know.
I mean, this was the worst guy to promote possible.
What is the goal here of Newsom by defending all of these illegals? Is this the hill he's willing to die on, Robert?
Standing up to the authoritarian. And he's the leader, even though he looks like a blow-haired clown. There's two things. One is this is the regime change color revolution script. So I recommend everybody look at the Revolver. Darren Beatty covered this in detail. Others have covered. The Duran has covered this in
Mike Benz has been covering it. Mike Benz.
Huh?
Mike Benz has been covering it.
Yeah, Mike Benz, another one's covered in detail. So you have a range. There's a bunch of stuff. Look at Oliver Stone's documentary, Ukraine on Fire. He gets into great detail.
Dude, that's it. I mean, anyone who could watch that documentary and then defend Ukraine has got to have a screw loose. I mean, it's just spot on in detail what happened there. And when I watched it, I said, okay, now I get it. I mean, I watched it when it came out. So when the Ukraine war happened, I knew, what side to be on in this particular crazy thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No doubt about it. So that's 80% of it. 20% of it.
I thought he was also trying to get back into primary zone because he lost a lot of credibility by trying to pivot to the center on trans issues and things like
You're
this.
talking about Newsom now.
So this is making him relevant all of a sudden again with the Democratic Party.
Well, the trans issues just got worse for him because Children's Hospital of LA, which is down the street from me, announced today no more children's trans operations will be allowed at the largest trans children's hospital in the country. This is a bigger operation than Vanderbilt here. This is the #1 children's hospital in America, announced today, and not complaining. They said it was the threat of Trump revoking our federal funding for the rest of the children that we did it, and they acknowledged that it was Trump's pressure, Robert. Front page of the LA Times today. I don't know where Newsom goes. Do they protest in front of the children's hospital now, demanding more mastectomies of little girls and surgeries on boys? I mean, where does this go? Are they dead now?
Well, I mean, there is issues with federal funding, and now increasingly.
I mean, you're near Vanderbilt, the other nerve center. The reason I mention it, these are the two.
Shutdown operations. In some case, Texas major institutions had to shut down operations. So part of it is the defunding. Part of it is more states passing laws limiting it. And then but probably the most consequential is, even from the UK, other places, reports that this doesn't work from a medical perspective. And that means they have massive, massive malpractice risk.
Right.
And
that's
more and more people are pursuing that. And also because they're children, the statute of limitations is extended. The statute of limitations doesn't typically start until you're an adult, until you're 18.
I didn't know that.
So, you got people who underwent this that got another 5, 6, 7 years to sue. And it was like the Tate brothers business. Being in the trans business, you're dealing with mentally ill people. What's the likelihood they blame you when they're not happy in 5 years? I mean, this was another reason.
You've also got detransitioners who are in media now speaking out very clearly how they were deceived and manipulated into doing this as a child.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. Now, the Supreme Court is sitting on the big Tennessee trans law case that's supposed to come down. And it probably will come down next week.
Could it also be that culture is moving away from the trans BS? Because I've always said that trans is the new emo, which was the new goth, which was the new blah, blah, blah. And really, it's seen as lame, and people are getting mocked more and more and more for the pronouns in their bios, things like that. So could it be that the culture itself is making it less desirable to pursue that?
The only counter to that is that these medical institutions are so out of touch with culture.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it with the Grace Shara trial that's been ongoing in Appleton, Wisconsin, where the entire defense is it's okay to kill a girl with Down syndrome in her hospital because her father was a COVID conspiracy theorist. And they're putting up people that think COVID was the greatest thing in the world, that the interventions were and this is what they truly believe. And this is the highest rank medical establishment, legal establishment. So you see it also in this sort of almost epileptic response to RFK bagging everybody on the vaccine advisory committee.
Didn't he put Malone on it now?
Huh?
Didn't he put Malone up on it?
Oh yeah. He put all it's almost all COVID critics. It's all vaccine critics. He went one by one. That's why they're shaking with rage. That's why Elizabeth Warren is talking about it. Let's impeach Robert Kennedy. I mean, that's the mindset. They're utterly out of touch. I think you're right. Fundamentally, that's creeping through the cultural shift. This was always an experiment that was ahistorical.
Right. Well, you have to have people who want to put themselves to do it, or their children. And if society hates it and frowns on it, it's no longer a fad or popular.
There's also the
less parents letting their kids do it or whatever because they'll be shunned.
Well, there's also the faddish nature of it among girls that people have written about in books, how they're spread from school to school to school, Robert.
And autism. There's some weird ties, especially with girls, with autism and trans. We don't know.
That's interesting.
What that's all about.
Surprise me because you've got a certain social disconnect to begin with. That's neurologically
like a Nashville
hardwired.
shooter.
Could you defend this guy, Robert, in England if you had to? This guy's Mohammed Hussein. He was using his thing into a 14-year-old British girl. Pakistani was arrested for doing something bad to this 14-year-old British girl. And his defense was, I just got here. I don't know UK law. I just follow Sharia law. It's the only one I know. And his third defense was, our prophet married a 9-year-old. Could you defend him if you had to, Robert, based on those three premises and knowing UK law?
Well, the way UK courts are, they'll probably let him walk. You know what I mean? Or give him something minor because it's a cultural difference.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that insanity is just
I don't understand that insanity legally.
Correct.
Like, how does that move into the legal sphere?
Correct. It's because the professional managerial class is part of that cultural transformation. So that's why you see it paramount amongst doctors, lawyers, psychologists, academics, teachers, professors, screenwriters. That's where it's now. My theory on the screenwriter thing is this: what's
the screenwriter thing?
So why did Hollywood go woke?
Oh,
I think it's twofold. One was there was this whole woke cultural revolution taking place, but the other was that if you were a crappy screenwriter, the way you could get a job is to preach the ideology. I think that I think it's not just that the ideology makes for bad storytelling. I think it's that bad storytellers are getting paychecks because they found a way to short circuit the system by just writing a bunch of woke garbage.
Is it like the Stalin artists?
I pitched a heist movie. I'll just give my own example. This must have been like this goes back so far. This must have been like 1999 or 2000. I pitched a heist movie up at Universal, and it was about stealing the National Archive, or stealing the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, out of the National Archives. And it was a MacGuffin, and it was a heist movie, and blah blah blah. And I'm talking to this guy who produced Volcano, and he's sitting there, and he's blah blah blah. I forget his name. Solomon or something, Bob Solomon. And the guy in back of me says, all of a sudden, are there any Asians in this movie? And I turn around and it's an Asian staffer. And I go, there are now. And I get back to my pitch right then and there. I mean, that's an actual true story. But the reason I'm mentioning is because this was in the 90s, Robert. This was happening in the 90s. I sold a black comedy to Fox Family. And they said, now you got to find a writer. And I said, well, I wrote this. What are you talking about? They said, you can't write it. You're white. And they sent us on this insane trek trying to find a black writer in Hollywood that could write the thing that I wrote and be a front for us, the writer and the producer. And it was just one comedy of errors after another. And we finally found a guy and we hired him. And he disappeared for 9 months, sent us a letter. He was in rehab, took all the money and smoked crack. That was the end of the project.
What you went through would be an even better movie than probably.
No, I just said it would be a much better documentary, finding a black writer in Hollywood. I mean, at first, when they said I couldn't write it, I quickly pivoted and said, without even thinking, my stepfather is black. And they go, that's not going to cut it, bro. That's not going to cut it. I made it up. I quickly said, my stepfather is black. And they said, sorry, tough break.
Were you ever tempted to be like the blacklisted commie writers of the 40s and get a front?
I was writing a piece for Penthouse. Producers contacted me and said they were using phony front black writers from movies by Martin Lawrence, movies by Eddie Murphy, and then having white writers in back of them. Big name producers.
Yes.
Total front situation, bro.
Yeah. I mean, and people forget. I mean, that's what a lot of the commie blacklisted writers had to do.
Yeah.
But did they come up with a fake pen name? That's you can come up with a fake pen name. What would be the black version of Mark Groubert?
Oh, I even told him my middle name was Jamal. I said my name. I forgot. So I said my name is Mark Jamal Groubert. They said, it's not going to make it, bro.
Yeah. See, what would be the Spanish version?
Oh, Julio. Yeah, Mark Julio Groubert.
Yeah, Julio. There you go.
Because in the 90s, they were starting to make a lot of ethnic comedies. So you just go with the flow. You're just a writer. It's not like a personal thing. And I lived in a multicultural world. I had a writer, a co-writer, named Joe Vasquez, who had written and directed Hanging with the Homeboys. He won the Sundance Award. I had produced Mambo Mouth with John Leguizamo, which was a multicultural. So I was in that world, but I didn't know I couldn't get paid because of the color of my skin.
Well, I mean, especially when they like rag on Tarantino. When Tarantino just captures the lingo of
that's all I was doing. That's what I was doing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and often it takes an outsider rather than an insider to really get that right.
Yeah.
Can I point out that a lot of this won't even matter very soon?
Well, who is this guy?
This?
No.
Indiana gonna win, baby.
We're in Florida asking people what they put their money on. I'm all in on OKC.
Indiana got that dog in them.
Will egg prices go up this month?
I think we'll hit $20. How many hurricanes do you think we'll have this year? Kalshi lets you legally trade on anything, anywhere in the U.S. OKC.
OKC.
That is
That's
a
brilliant.
real ad from
Wow.
the NBA Finals, and it was done 100% AI. It was all using Google Veo with the voice syncing, the writing, all of that.
Oh,
and
now you used a version of that for your Oswald series. It's on Locals, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Eric.
And he said it worked out good, right?
It takes some tinkering, but Eric's got it figured out.
Yeah, we've got it going. I'm looking to possibly do more. I don't know about Oswald, but
We got the LBJ one coming next, right?
LBJ. I may do some visual stuff with the LBJ down the road. I don't know yet, but that's the future.
Figured out a way to do the super chats the way Ricada does. I'm waiting for the Ricada haters to read the chat. Every show I show up at, there's like 3 or 4 Ricada haters that show up.
What?
I've probably done a mind twist on the people that always ask me if I'm working for Mossad by being critical of Danielle.
Dude, they contacted me. They said they had to replace the batteries in your yarmulke that I gave you. I don't know.
Exactly.
They reached out to you, Robert.
Correct. His super tip thing, right, where he has other people's voices. That would be really cool. I don't know if you've seen that. So Ricada, you can do a super chat somehow.
I saw that. But already he's had multiple cease and desists from other people. So I'd have to be.
That's funny.
I have to be careful with whichever way to go.
Hunley saying all kinds of crazy stuff. Groubert saying me, Viva, other people. I think it'd be funny as the Dickens.
Well, what we when the scripts that Eric was working on, the voices have become so close in the drama that it's just marvelous. I mean, it's for me, as a writer, and listening to him, but holy shit, that sounds like LBJ.
Now, could you make it into a film version like Kalshi did?
Well, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah, I don't know.
I've been practicing. I've got another channel called Proven Conspiracies.
Yeah.
And I'm working pretty diligently with AI and building models or whatever to hopefully animate sequences. The first one would be possibly Operation Snow White, because that's got some cool action with the FBI breaking in and L. Ron Hubbard's craziness or whatever. But
I could redo the hush hushes with select ones with.
Let me tell you something. If I would have had that back in the 90s, I would have phoned it in from day one. I would have run, dude. I'll be on time this week. Don't worry, boys. I'm just finishing the second draft. You'll have it by Monday, and then just take another nap.
Mark, how much it's nervous? The point where you can get Claude to write a script for you. I mean, I'm serious.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's getting so good. I could probably take Oswald, and LBJ and this, feed it all into Claude and say, now write me a script in this style, in this voice about whatever the hell I want. Here are the facts. Here's this.
Right.
Blah, 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 blah.
There's certainly enough written words out there by me, for instance, that it could go through everything I've written and use my style or Tarantino style or whoever's style. If you do have a style and volume, I would just order that. What's that?
How would Mark Groubert write this screenplay? I wonder.
Right, and I'll just come up with a new idea and just say, please write this as I would. You know what I mean? And whatever draft came out, I could punch it up. You know what I mean? I just sit there punching up my own first draft.
How much are screenwriters nervous about AI?
Oh, they're freaking out. They're completely terrified. The business is done anyway. If you listen to Mamet like I do, David Mamet is going around on, because he's got the new movie out and the new book. And even Tarantino, both of them are exactly on the same page. that this completely ended in 2017, the film business, 18. That was the end of it. And right now it's just grabbing for straws, any money they can get. You know, it's like the last end. I mean, the record industry's gone. Capitol Records, the building itself is empty here. The studios are starting to empty out. Disney laid off another 5,000. I don't know how many thousands of people can work for Disney and still not be laid off yet, you know.
Yeah.
There's no there. The streaming model, which is a subscription model, is so deceptive because you've got one product trying to get them to subscribe to 99 other pieces of shit, and nobody wants to see the other 99 pieces of shit. And if you quit the model, they'll keep coming back to you, $6.99 a month, now $3.99 a month. We don't care. Whatever you can give us for the model, for the submodel, we'll take, because this is the end. The submodel is not, you can't continue this. It's the end of the entire industry.
Well, so, I mean, because I think Sony was one of the ones that rejected it and just continued to license their products to Netflix.
Yeah.
And it looks like financially they've been better off by doing so.
Right, but it's only temporary. It's only temporary. You can't sustain this model any longer by going around the world trying to make films in a socialist country like Ireland simply because it has pension and health, and you save the money on the health because that country has socialized medicine. I mean, you could do it a couple of times, but how can that be your model? You know, you can't keep going to Tennessee to make movies, right? Or Canada. That's long gone. New Mexico and other states have outbid them, but that's not sustainable.
Yeah, that's what's scary, because I've seen a lot of talk that a lot of the real sort of blue collar portion of Hollywood can now move out of Hollywood because the film is going to be shot in Georgia. It's going to be shot in Tennessee.
I see these poor sons of bitches in Burbank every day. Okay, they haven't worked in 2 years. They don't know what to do. They want to shoot themselves in the head. They've already sold their homes. They've already gotten divorced. They're already doing drugs and alcohol. These are grips. These are gaffers. These are, the whole thousands and thousands, Robert, out of work for over a year and a half, 2 years.
Wow.
Because you're not going to take the crew with you to Ireland. You're just going to crew up in Ireland. You don't have to.
Right. With the AI, it's getting even worse. And I did have an article I wanted to run by.
Yeah, go ahead.
Barnes on this, because this is involving a case. OpenAI was supposed to delete people's chats. Okay, so understand that when people are using ChatGPT or whatever, Mark likes to use Grok a lot of people are looking up things like weird medical conditions. There's all kinds of stuff they're looking up, and there's a certain privacy concern. And OpenAI had a policy where all the chats would be deleted permanently after 30 days, and people said delete it. Well, now, because there's a New York Times lawsuit against OpenAI, probably very legitimately, that OpenAI was scraping New York Times and everything else to do their training. So it's spitting out articles, sometimes word for word, like the New York Times. They're saying they got a judge to rule that ChatGPT cannot delete any chats. That's, to me, a problem, because it is affecting the consumer in terms of privacy versus ChatGPT. They obviously want to delete it. I'm curious your thoughts legally on that.
It's the abuse of discovery power, which has happened in federal courts now in a wide range of cases. So that they are for, like in a lot of my vaccine mandate cases, that they've decided to make the person the subject of massive investigation, inquisition. And so, like, I mean, I've had a judge order that the plaintiff has to turn over their family's medical history in order to because you have liberal Democratic judges who are more pro-vaccine than they're pro-employee, and you have conservative Republican judges who are more pro-employer than they are pro-religious rights. And so 90% of the judges we deal with are hostile, and they are requiring the most insane a level of disclosure. And if you don't give that level of disclosure, they either dismiss the suit or do the equivalent of it by issuing massive sanctions against your client that circumvents all of due process, circumvents all of the jury trial rights, but your chance of getting that but it's the courts doing it, and the only people you can go to for relief are other courts who have no interest.
Isn't that kind of what happened to Alex Jones, that they wanted him to, in discovery, give up things he didn't even have?
Correct. That's exactly right. In fact, I mean, I told him from the get-go that was going to happen.
Okay.
I said the whole thesis they had.
Did they say he was lying about not having particular documents that he didn't have?
Correct. Because their whole premise was always false, and they knew it was false. Media Matters knew it was false. They all knew it was false. The premise was Alex Jones originated, that Sandy Hook never happened, that he was the chief propagandist, that Sandy Hook never happened, and that he made a bunch of money from Sandy Hook never happened. Problem is, 99.9% of what InfoWars published said Sandy Hook did happen. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is Jones didn't have any doubts about anything that happened at Sandy Hook until 18 months into it, because other people were complaining to him. His only talk about maybe Sandy Hook didn't happen the way they said was like 7 minutes over 3 years.
Right, but why would it matter whether some guy said Sandy Hook didn't happen? Who gives a shit?
Well, it was their theory was they converted that into a mass intentional infliction of emotional distress claim, and which is not supposed to happen legally. You're not supposed to be able to sue for when it's too broad a group. It's actually an old New York case. What happened is they lied about two different groups in Macy's, and one group was small. It was like the men's dressing room, men's suit sales, and they said, well, by you libeling that group, there's so few people who work there. Those people can sue because you would think it identifies them. Whereas they also said it about a whole department of that. They said like every woman worker at Macy's is terrible. And they're like, there's no specific woman that could refer to because there's too many of them. It was called the Rule of 25, created by the
Wow, that's weird.
If it's fewer than 25, you can sue, suggesting it's implied about you. More than 25, you're not allowed to.
How many were in the Jones? How many were in the Jones case?
Thousands. Potentially thousands. And
I mean, were they
this
named?
is insane.
Were they named as defendants?
Some were, some weren't.
Right.
So
some weren't, right?
Because they kept expanding.
Right.
And at least the statements about Sandy Hook could have referred to thousands of people. So by definition, you can't say I was the one that everybody knew it was about. So that was one problem. But the other problem was they knew their whole theory about Jones was wrong. He wasn't the principal critic of Sandy Hook. In fact, the very day it happened, he said it happened. And he said, it's probably you're going to find pharmaceuticals involved. You're going to find poor mental health treatment involved. You're going to find inadequate security at the school system involved. He goes, but don't worry, they'll blame it all on the gun. That was his 90% of what he said about it. They knew that if the truth this is why they were scared to have a trial on the merits, even in front of a liberal Austin, Texas, or liberal Sandy Hook jury that experienced the trauma, because they knew they would lose if the facts came out.
Right.
So instead, what they did is they said, okay, the true evidence of all of these statements and all the money he made off of it, he has. Well, they knew it was false. So how do you say, oh, judge, he's hiding the evidence that proves our case is false, right? It was always garbage. And the judges went along because they were complicit. And that's why they had just a trial on damages. It was totally fake from beginning to end.
I don't know what court this was, but they upheld the Jean Carroll $5 million.
Yeah, it was New York Second Circuit.
Second Circuit. Okay. It's just
so the federal court upheld. One judge dissented. Several judges dissented from the en banc review.
Yeah,
that was done. It's just embarrassing that such a ridiculous
embarrassing, isn't it, Robert? I mean, this is so.
Well, it violates the Westfall Act, right? Because the Westfall Act was passed to give the executive branch immunity for speech. Instead, it's been used to give the legislative branch immunity from speech, which they already have to a degree under the speech and debate clause. It wasn't meant to extend it beyond the speech and debate clause, but that's what courts have done. Courts have said this protects congressmen, but not the president of the United States.
That's insane. Also, this seems like the type of case where you would give her a $1 award and call it a day.
Really, she's right. She's the most batshit insane person.
Right. If you won this case, I would just say, okay, here's $1, get lost. You won, here's $1. But $5 million? Really? That's the extent of your made up story, that you would damage $5 million worth?
They just have no sense of monetary limits. You see that in the Alex Jones cases, where they originally asked for $2 trillion.
$2 trillion.
It was absurd, asinine on its face. The court system should have had some self-respect, but they didn't.
By the way, there's an arrest warrant out for Antonio Brown right now. I don't know if you
the Pittsburgh Steelers player.
Yeah, he's on the run for. This is from a story from a month ago where he was involved in a shooting at a boxing match in a little place in Little Haiti in Miami, and there's cell phone footage of him now. The police let him go that night, but there's cell phone footage of him now. Actually allegedly shooting this guy in the neck, and they've issued an attempted. Here it is. Yeah, Antonio Brown wanted an attempt. This is quite real. This is quite real. I've looked at this as quickly as I could before the show. There's a lot of meat on this bone, and he's been in trouble. This may be the final thing for Brown.
So is this a new Hernandez?
Well, the guy's alive, and the guy got shot in the neck, so he's not dead. So there's a different thing here.
How did how did that happen? Was like skim or something?
No, yeah, it skinned his neck. Yeah, it skinned his neck, and there's cell phone footage. A lot of people involved. He claimed at the time that 3 guys were trying to steal his jewelry in this melee. So the cops at the time sided with him a month ago. But now after further review, number 29, Antonio Brown, is now wanted for attempted murder.
Wow. Yeah, that'll be an interesting case. See how that develops.
Now, what do you make of the Diddy case where this is going now? Because Kanye West has shown up in support of him. Today.
Is that helpful?
I don't even know if that helps. I mean, I don't know.
Well, there's a rumor that Kanye is the one they're hiding public disclosure of, that the high-profile rapper is identified as being involved in comparable behavior with Diddy, and it came out with one of the witnesses.
Yeah.
But they went to great lengths to hide his name and hide his voice from the public.
You know, like Barnes, it would seem like the most obvious choice if you look at the way Kanye or Ye or whatever displays.
He changed his name again, by the way.
Well, I mean, have you seen how he displays his wife? I mean, he's doing it publicly.
Oh, yeah. I think she's getting him. You know, she reached out to me a year or so ago to represent them, but never followed up on it. But I heard that they were getting divorced.
That is, I've heard that too. I heard that.
But they're still.
Well, you know who's neck deep in this? They're not talking about, because it was supposedly done for somebody's girlfriend who had a birthday in January, and they're like, "Who? What high-profile rapper?
Wait, Kamala Harris
have a girlfriend?" Well, it's Kim Kardashian.
Oh yeah, Kardashian.
Kardashians are neck deep in all of this. Remember, the Kardashians are very close with someone I briefly represented, Joe Francis of Girls Gone Wild.
Well, Kim Kardashian came on the scene with a particular videotape.
Yes.
That I've never seen anybody become more successful off of an underground sex tape.
And there's a lot of rumors that, you know, one of the younger Kardashians that does those little Dubai trips.
Oh,
that, you know, I mean, do you know what they do? It makes McAfee look normal. I mean, it is what they get these high-end models for. It's really, you don't research it.
I'm quite aware of the rate. I'm aware of the prices and the rates and some of the famous girls who have done it in Hollywood.
Well, they love a reverse McAfee special. That's what they love there. So you
know who came out of nowhere was Willie Brown this week on media, talking about Kamala Harris and the governor's race coming up. And now Rick Grinnell today, as reported from this network, has said that the entire governor's race hinges on the decision by one Kamala Harris, Eric.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be tough to beat her if she were to run.
Of course.
Yep. But the question is, I mean, I don't know. I mean, granted, the governorship is kind of an empty office to a degree, these days. I mean, California.
No, it's a holding station. I mean, that's why Nixon ran for it after he lost. That's why, people go there and hang out so you can run again for a higher office.
Well, two of the greatest quotes, right? One was, remember what Nixon said after he lost the gubernatorial race in 1962?
Can't kick Nixon around?
Yeah, that's it. That's where that comes from. You don't get to kick Nixon around anymore.
You're not going to have Dick Nixon to kick around anymore.
Exactly. So my second favorite one is...
You gave as good as you could get.
I think it was 1966. Remember Pierre Salinger was briefly made senator in California?
Yeah, what was that about?
And then he ran to hold the office and lost. Yeah. Remember what his famous statement was afterwards?
What?
The people have spoken, the bastards.
Oh, no, that's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Well, my favorite one was Salinger was going through the airport, got all his Cuban cigars seized. And he's like, what are you going to do with that? He goes, I bet I know what you're going to do with it. You're going to destroy them one by one through combustion, I presume.
Salinger famously came out and said the TWA Flight 800 was a shoot down.
I knew his niece. His niece was one of my poker dealers for my poker parties in Malibu.
Wow, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. She's a sweetheart. I mean, they're all, but all the friends of mine that are on the left are on this big protest thing. They're all
what a shock
about this protest.
What a shock that is.
Yeah, I know. So it tells you where this is what Newsom and others are following.
Who's going to mow their lawns, Robert? If this goes bad, who is going to do their lawns?
There's that aspect, and then it's all the young people are looking for a cause, right?
Yeah,
They're just and this is the pretext. It's just a poor cause to pick if I was the left, but
not a good one.
They're part of the Underground Railroad. They're taking down the man. They're taking down the system. They're homie, don't play that. It's that routine.
Well, Homan, who is the man, as in this case, Homan, the man, says he's going to expand and continue the raids, Eric and Robert. And he, after a while, you're going to run out of Home Depots. He's starting to go inside of actual physical businesses and drag them out.
The people who do keep asking in the chat for Mark to do the LBJ "Come on, Bobby" routine from the 1960 Democratic National Convention.
Oh, come on, Bobby! It's really from a different event. I'll tell you what it's from. He shows up to go hunting with LBJ, and LBJ gave him a trick shotgun, and it kicked like a mule and knocked him on his ass. And he went to help him up, and Bobby was really angry that I think he knew it was a trick gun. Because it kicked like a mule and knocked him back on his ass, and LBJ was just laughing over him. And he went, "Oh, come on, Bobby!" And he kind of like helped him up with his hands, and that's where it came from.
Now he did have a car that could like go into water, right?
Yes, he did, and he used it on anyone who visited him. And if they jumped into the water to save themselves, he would then say, "You're not loyal to the president. You saved your own ass." And that was used as a badge of dishonor. By LBJ. He got that aqua car, the one that went into it looked like a Studebaker. It went into the lake and it, became a boat. And some people who were sitting in it would just get the fuck out before it sank, not knowing it was a boat. And this was one of his sick loyalty tests, Robert.
What is the best book on LBJ, do you think?
Oh, the best one is probably Mastermind of the Assassination by Philip Nelson. Yeah. You could read all the Robert Caro ones. They're fascinating, but you're not going to get into any assassination stuff, which is where Caro draws the line, like many liberals. He won't go there. And he claimed that he was going to go there in this new one that is yet to come out. And I have not heard anything since then.
Interesting.
Maybe he's waiting. Okay, Mark, you sent me this guy for Barnes.
Yeah, this is the latest guy, Robert, who I just wanted to show his picture to Robert. I just thought this fucking clown was just a clown circus guy. And he's another one who's put some stop on a Trump order.
Yeah. You got all these these judges don't respect restraint. That doesn't exist. And it's forcing a lot of normies in conservative legal world to address the problem that has always been there with the judges. It's just more apparent and evident to them because of how far they're willing to go against Trump. It's the other thing, by the way, they take the wrong lesson from Trump that, I've seen circulated in left Democratic circles that what Newsom, what Padilla did is that they'll get the Trump being a arrested vote. Like they don't understand why the reaction to that was what it was. They think that if they now look like a felon, that will boost them politically because they now think that's how Trump secretly got back in. It's because of how disconnected they are from the normie voter there. But how are people handling? Now, you're right. The riots seem to recede. I assume you think the riots are going to come back even more aggressive.
Starting tomorrow, of course. Yeah, this is the calm before the storm. The guy who showed up there, the FBI Patel arrested the kid who showed up with a truck full of these expensive face masks from Amazon that Eric and I showed on the show the other day. He was merely the driver. This is a radical wing of the Teamsters locally that is a Teamsters democracy wing. Eric and I were talking.
The old anti-Teamster, anti-Hoffa wing of the Teamsters.
Right. So they used dues money from their members to buy these expensive face masks from Amazon. This kid was just the driver of the truck that the FBI picked up. Hopefully they'll flip him and allow him to name who just sent him with the masks, Robert. In the middle of a riot, he's passing out these brand new boxes of masks.
Yeah.
But look how far the unions are willing to go. The unions are willing to take union dues, make these purchases, and distribute them in a upheaval riot in the middle of a major city. I don't think I've ever seen that.
And really to help scab labor.
Yeah.
It's directly contrary what is in the best interest of most union members.
Well, is there thinking that eventually they will be union members?
But within certain unions, that's part of it. So, like, I get the SEIU being involved because they got a service employees. They got a lot of illegals that are union members,
right?
But like your auto workers, your
Teamsters,
your old school Teamsters, they do not profit from any of this. That they are undermined by this, and it just shows how much labor leadership has declined and decayed.
Right. I don't think it's the rank and file. I just find it odd if I was in the rank and file that they took my dues to buy gas masks in a protest, my dues money, for Christ's sakes.
Exactly.
Is this a federal beef by the DOJ that they may have a case of the union leadership taking the money to purchase? Okay. Yeah.
At multiple levels, because you've got tax law violations going on with these NGOs, with these unions, with the Democratic Party, complicit parties. You've got federal civil rights violations going on. You've got federal obstruction of federal law enforcement going on. So you have conspiracies to do this. So you have aiding and abetting that's doing it. You have obstructive behavior Democrats have laid out the map. All you got to do is take the January 6th map and reverse it and apply it to these people. And the main difference is these people actually did what they accused the January 6th people of doing. They didn't do. So you can just take the same roadmap with the same set of charges and round them all up. The question is whether they have the wherewithal and the willpower to do so at the Justice Department and at the FBI, which I seriously doubt.
Well, we had a guest, Grossman, who was defending the J6ers, right, Eric? And he was a rabbi turned lawyer. And he defended a bunch of J6s pro bono, and he was hired by Harmeet Dillon this week.
Yeah, now Dillon's doing great work.
Yeah.
Dillon is the only one, but she came in and announced major policy changes and said everybody's got to be on board. What happened? Over half the people quit. I'd had this discussion with Dillon years ago because she was thinking about it back in Trump's first term, decided not to do it because she didn't think she'd be in a position to make the difference. So she comes in and announces full policy changes. That gets you the personnel changes because half of them
goes hand in hand. Yeah,
correct. And then you get to replace them with a bunch of great people who are eager to help out. And she's going to staff the Civil Rights Division will be the most effective division of the Justice Department. Right. It won't come from the FBI. It won't, just like Gabbard will be the most influential in the intelligence.
Gabbard's been great. I mean, fantastic. RFK's been great. This Harmeet Dillon's been great.
Kennedy, Kennedy, Gabbard, Vance, Dillon are delivering. Everybody else.
Rubio seems to be delivering.
And
Rubio kind of. Like, you just never know what exactly to
What's your take now on Pam Bondi? I meant to ask you, where are we with this chick? I gave up on her. I gave up on her a long time ago. You seem to have more patience.
Yeah, I don't think she's going to achieve anything. Okay. So I think now replacing her with somebody you can get through the Senate, probably tricky. So you need to put some people under, in her deputy and assistant positions. And I've heard from some of the people connected to them, and they've said the reason why they haven't been aggressive is because they've been fighting defensive actions everywhere. So that a lot of the best civil division people, some of the better criminal division people have been sidetracked by all the lawsuits against the Trump administration. So I could get that. But what that does is it shifts back priority to the FBI, where Kash Patel has been in nonsense. Dan Bongino has been in nonsense. I just don't have any confidence either. And now he did just get his IRS commissioner through.
They have
the auctioneer, which is great.
They have investigators.
We have a person in charge of the IRS who has called for the abolition of the IRS. So that's
nice.
Good.
That's fun. That's fun. Well, I mean, look, they have guns and they do have police powers. I mean, can they be used?
Absolutely. Well, not only that, they have access to incredible financial records.
That's what I was just going to say.
I mean, anytime they want without anybody even knowing, and they can put together all your financial. I get where the criticism is coming from. What Trump is trying to use Palantir for is for what's been hidden from within the surveillance state, not to create a surveillance state that already exists. Surveillance state already exists. What he wants Palantir to do,
for instance, if you're trying to find the money from these NGOs and the funneling of the money. What better organization than the IRS, Robert?
Correct.
Because the NGOs
this is what he wants to sync up. He wants Palantir and Doge to sync up Social Security records, vendor contract records, the Defense Department and others, with IRS records. Because what it will out is it will out corrupt NGOs. What it will out is it will out illegals receiving government benefits. So those are the two areas he really wants to fix, where there's major budgetary changes and policy ramifications. And that's why the New York Times is trying to run a hit pieces every day on Palantir, trying to convince the anti-establishment crowd that Palantir is the great threat, when what Trump wants to use Palantir for is the areas where the deep state has hidden information and intel. And the surveillance state's already here. It's already here at scale. I mean, I can put in a note and find 450 things about Eric. I don't know if I'll have he used to have.
Or you could watch my interview of Eric on What's Up with Lord Buckley
exactly.
on YouTube.
You're correct. You digitize that, stick it in the database, and boom.
It's already in the database.
It is. That's the reality of the world.
So I read today that philosophy that you can apply to that ChatGPT, DMs on X or everything else. Treat everything you put down as if it's on a postcard.
Well, just think about the things you like, right? The old statement was on Facebook or Instagram. If you've liked 10 things, Facebook knows you better than a friend. If you've liked 20 things, Facebook knows you better than family. If you've liked at least 50 things, Facebook knows you better than your wife, than your spouse. Wow. And so and most people have liked more than 50 things. They're just going through like.
There is a secret around that, though, Barnes.
What is that? We get the tech nerds conspiracy to avoid the system.
Well, no, it's actually an inadvertent thing. Because I interview different people and whatever else, my interests change every week. So I'm always searching for information about this, information about that, information about this. So it throws algos off because they don't know what the hell I'm really about. Like, I interviewed James Lindsay. I know, Barnes, you're a huge fan of James Lindsay right now. But then I'm talking to you, and it's like, well, wait, that would cause
I did that years ago on my Facebook page because my ex was harassing any woman that was listed as a friend.
They always do that. What is that, a thing? Everybody does. Every ex always does that.
I know. So I was like, I'm going to go through and friend every model in the world. And
wow.
So a lot of them got harassed, but I have like 1,000 models on there. Well, it started because the guy who set up my account, a buddy of mine from Yale, he was using my name to hook up with models. He was like, oh yeah, I and
what?
So he was using the Barnes Law account, had like all these
the
models.
The account.
I was like, how do we have all these models on here? What? And then it got me in trouble with the soon-to-be ex at the time. But that's actually, and we did that for a client. We created 8 fake paper trails because there are a bunch of people after him for various reasons. He might have owed some debt, hypothetically speaking. California government might have been unhappy with him. Like, by the way, he lived in Jodie Foster's old house up in the Hollywood Hills.
Who hasn't? I have a friend just got a new job. She's, I don't even know how to say this. She is the ghostwriter for OnlyFans girls who are online. She's the one writing with them.
That's going to be a short-lived job, Mark. That's another AI.
Competition is
AI. Well, no, right now, apparently it's a bunch of Indian guys, right? These guys think they're talking to this hot chick, and they're talking to some Indian nerd.
Well, now they're talking to somebody who is not an Indian guy, but you'd be surprised.
Was good at how to feed the story, feed the psychology of it.
Yeah.
Well, you know who else used to do that, Barnes? Andrew Tate.
Oh, really?
Yeah, his cam girls. When the guys were talking to them, they were talking to Andrew Tate. He was
this is quite common, apparently. So, I mean, you can talk to Andrew Tate or an Indian guy or anybody. I mean,
right.
Once it gets big enough, they all farm it out. You know, I mean, Moby famously told someone in a radio interview during Trump's first term that he turned over his social media to the CIA and bragged about it. And they ran his, and I think they ran Rob Reiner's, and I think they ran a whole mess of celebrities' social media. And he admitted that he turned it over to them. Rob Reiner famously deleted his when Trump was reelected and then checked into rehab. And I think that was the end of the PSYOP.
Didn't Scarlett Johansson or somebody mention that like randomly and they tried to suppress it on like a Jimmy Kimmel interview or something?
Yeah, and that's what happened with Moby. I heard it on an interview in a radio station in Indianapolis, some random interview. And he never said it again. And a couple of them slipped up and said it, including Moby and Scarlett Johansson.
It's, apparently all the AI OnlyFans, all those models, they're going to get wiped out because
I know that's what I'm talking about. It won't be just the communications; it'll be the model themselves. I mean,
she said the girl told me there are some of them already.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Apparently, there's a range of influencers like on TikTok and the rest that are completely fake. They're just AI. I was wondering if I could create multiple AI versions of myself. Like that would be interesting. Like they maybe get more, work done or whatever. I'd be curious what that would look like.
Well, you'd at least have a bigger presence on social media at a minimum. Right. I mean, whatever.
You your clone doing all the work.
Right.
Now the question is, if Mark Groubert gets a clone, will the clone figure out how to find a way to get that same hat?
I have two of these. I have two of these just so the clone could have another one.
There you go. Wait, well, where do you get these hats? They look like 1970s New York.
Hats are us. It's like a rare thing in New York.
Yeah, they're cool hats. But
did you read this DeSantis thing that he says it's okay in Florida now to run someone over if they are surrounding your car in a riot, Robert? And in other words, you're trapped in one of those unwinnable.
Arguably, it's always been a self-defense position.
To just pull out of there and whatever happens.
I mean, I've always thought if somebody jumps in front of your car, and you need the second component of am I in reasonable fear?
Well, they're surrounding the car, on the other side. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, Bruce Springsteen's thing about it back before he was woke. Remember, he goes driving into the kind of town where you get to a red light, you don't stop.
Right.
Was that Johnny 99? Was that song?
I don't know what that's from. That's weird.
I forget which one it was, but it always stuck with me in my head, the image of it. I was like, I mean, if you have reasonable fear for your being physically injured severely, depending on what state you're in, some it's property, some it's bodily injury, some it's serious bodily injury, etc. But I think if you're stuck in the middle of those riots and you've seen go back to the Rodney King riots, remember they pulled that truck driver out and the daylights out. I think you have a credible self-defense argument. It seems to me.
Well, on that note, I actually had this pulled up for the show today.
Oh, weird.
Here's what this sheriff is promising. This is another guy out of Florida for people and rioters.
Who's that? Pam Bondi's sister on the right?
I know. It looks like it, doesn't it?
So I'm gonna break it down for you. All right. And if somebody wants to know what I mean by turn violent, all right, this is what I mean. If you resist lawful orders, you're going to jail. Let me be very clear about that.
Okay.
If you block an intersection or a roadway in Brevard County, you are going to jail. If you flee arrest, you're going to go to jail tired because we are going to run you down and put you in jail. If you try to mob rule a car in Brevard County, gathering around it, refusing to let the driver leave,
mob rule.
In our county, you're most likely going to get run over and dragged across the street. If you spit on us, you're going to the hospital and in jail. If you
hospital and jail,
you're going to the hospital.
That's why this
and jail, and most likely get bitten by one of our big, beautiful dogs that we have here.
No, that's funny.
If you throw a brick, a firebomb, or point a gun at one of our deputies, we will be notifying your family where to collect your remains at, because we will kill you in graveyard. We're not going to play.
I thought you might want to hear that, but I do think there needs to be a stronger stance with the rioters where they're like, let
the problem here is they have their hands tied behind their back. LAPD, as I pointed out on other shows, they can, as Adam Carolla said, it's like a guy goes into a bank to rob the bank and he pulls out a gun and everyone sees it's a phony gun, so they just grab him and beat the shit out of him. They have guns, they can't use them. They have rubber bullets, they can't use those. They've been sued for that. They've been sued for the tear gas projectiles. They've been sued for every single aspect of previous riot defenses, Robert. So they are literally just dancing around in this kabuki dance theater with the protesters who know every move. They've been to every one of these. They know how far they can go. And then when you start to mix in National Guard and the Marines, that could change the zeitgeist. But for the most part, the LAPD allows them to get onto the ramps, allows them to get onto the 101, allows them to shut it down all the way to Sacramento, allows them to take the overpasses to drop bricks onto their SUVs and patrol cars. All of this is allowed under the leadership of Karen Bass and her handpicked stooge. I don't know what else to say.
I had a theory, Barnes, and maybe you can run it by, that the Marines can possibly enforce the law like the police can't, because it's very difficult to sue the feds. Good luck suing the Marines if you get caught up in that mess and taken down. Am I wrong on my theory?
Two things. Somebody pointed out that your hat, Mark, might match Robert De Niro's from the movie Mean Streets.
You know, that's a good analogy right there. Mean Streets hat.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. Well, I'm a big hat guy, so
yeah.
I love hats.
No, I got a lot of different ones. Like I got a whole hat collection.
Oh yeah, I mean, like some people love shoes. I love hats.
Hats
are
like cool.
85 of them, 90 of them.
There was a time the hat industry was destroyed in 1960. Every single hat guy went out of business because in January 20th, there was a guy who took the oath of office without a hat. And that was, went in a parade, John F. Kennedy did not wear a hat. And it literally overnight shuttered the entire hat business in the United States because of his refusal to wear a hat. And he never wore a hat. They gave him a cowboy hat in Fort Worth the night before he was killed, and he toyed with putting it on his head. And he said, come see me in the White House next week. I'll put it on for you privately. He toyed with putting it on, never wore a hat. And that ended the hat business for like, I want to say 25, 35 years.
Right. Like, I mean, like you go back teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s.
Yeah.
I mean,
up until 1960. Up until 1960.
Yeah. Good suits out on the street and all that.
JFK killed the hat business. And then they took his head off. And maybe that was punishment by the hat industry.
To the Eric's question about Marines, so so Trump has the authority to use the militia, which is basically the National Guard under congressional law, to enforce federal law. And it was whenever there's a risk of federal law not being enforced, he has the right to enforce federal law using the National Guard. There's separate aspect. A lot of people focus on the posse comitatus and all of that. That was done, by the way. They passed that law to limit the army to protect the Klan. People don't understand the history.
Wow.
The reason why that statute was passed when it was passed, it was to allow the Klan to have no interference from the army in the Deep South.
Wow.
That's where the Posse Comitatus Act derives from in that form. But even that, what they rewrote the National Guard type laws to say that he could use the military to facilitate the same things that he can use the militia for. So that as long as he stays within, to enforce federal law and to secure federal property, to secure federal personnel enforcing federal law, he can use any aspect of the Marines and the military as well as the militia. And as you pointed out, happened in the 60s with LBJ. It goes all the way back to the beginning of the country. The tax rebellion was whiskey tax rebellion. Thomas Jefferson used it to enforce the Embargo Act. Abraham Lincoln famously, of course, suspended habeas corpus himself. But other presidents have constantly used it. Andrew Jackson.
The Kennedys during the Oxford riots in Mississippi sent down U.S. Marshals. Eisenhower sent in General Walker.
Yeah, exactly.
Into Little Rock, Arkansas.
And this idea that you have to get the governor's approval.
I never heard of that. I've never even heard of that.
Door to communicate his disapproval. So yeah, now going to Mark's point about riots, this changed after the 60s riots. From 1800s to the late 1960s, law was that if you had a police force and a riot occurred, the city was on the hook for all property damage done.
Wow.
That encouraged cracking down on rioters.
Right.
They then took away those laws to say the city could no longer be responsible for any riot that occurs. So now the law is flipped on its head. If you're a police force, the only way you can get sued is to intervene.
Yeah.
If you don't intervene, you can't be sued,
right.
Which is totally messed up. Now, that's slightly changed with Seattle. People successfully sued Seattle over its stand-down orders over the Summer of Love Chaz
and Chop or whatever.
Yeah, but a good number of businesses got some cash in that regard. But that's kind of where the law facilitates this riotous behavior.
Well, in 1965, during the Watts riots, LBJ was asleep, drunk, and Bill Moyers tried to wake him up to no avail. And Bill Moyers impersonated him in calling the National Guard out to literally was shoot to kill orders here in LA during the Watts riots. He had to impersonate LBJ. He signed the documents. LBJ was too drunk to get out of bed to do it.
So the auto pen before the auto pen.
Early auto pen, my friend.
Well,
where does this auto? Where does this auto pen?
Wife was running the White House for 6 months because he was incapacitated at the end of his term.
Well, so was Joe Biden probably.
Yeah,
Where does this auto pen thing go? I don't think it goes anywhere.
Legally, it'll have no consequence. Politically, it's a good embarrassment of the Biden.
But that's it. There's no legal angle to the scandal. Right. Yeah.
It's like going after the cocaine. Like when
I know.
We're going to figure out who. I mean, everybody knows who was doing the cocaine.
Right.
Come on.
I mean, is there any? Go ahead.
I'm going to get to my own cocaine. We have super chats.
Oh, that's the cocaine of Hunley. Yeah,
that's right.
He's been snorting super chats since high school.
People should just clip that first part, and then do an AI version of Hunley.
There you go. I'll take it if it gets money. Okay, so we've got Dog Boy, Bondi, Bongino, Patel, the Three Stooges who folded.
It is weird. They were the loudest barkers as pit bulls, and Mike Schaefer.
Well, I think down deep they're institutionalists. They think the institutions are fine.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mike Schaefer, for $20.
And the channel name is What's Up?
Yeah.
What's up with Lord Buckley with a question mark? Yeah. What's up? Like WASSUP. Like the shirt. I gave you the shirt. That's the channel.
Yep.
All right. Nick Giusti. Mark, congrats on your new show. Regardless of medical advice, I was able to subscribe to your channel and this channel without a medical incident. Please subscribe and hit that like button, folks. And by the way, in line with what Mark is doing, because believe it or not, I've done interviews for many years now. And Mark actually came about with an interview with me.
Is that true?
Into this whole scene. Oh, this show came out of my doing an interview with you on my show.
Oh,
which I still do. But I've decided to release the interviews on Thursdays at around 5:36. So if people are interested, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, now Thursday, there's potentially shows coming from either of us.
How was the Lindsay interview? Have you published that?
Yeah, I put it up yesterday.
I didn't see it yesterday. How is it?
I liked it a lot. I thought it was instructive. I don't like the term woke right. I never really have. I kind of pressured him on it, but there are elements out there, and it's a matter of getting the right thing. But I actually got him to name names, and I brought up your name in it, whether he thought you were woke right or not.
What did he say?
No.
Oh, okay.
He doesn't think
he
you are.
Gone completely batshit insane. He was.
No, it's like Tim Pool. He said that Tim Pool's not. That Tim Pool, he's having a spat because he blocked Sargon of Akkad, and Tim Pool and Sargon are really close, and so then that started a battle. It's very interesting. I don't know. Check it out and see.
This coming week, I mean, Tuesday we'll be on with our own show, Eric and I, and then Wednesday I'm going to have Viva. And we're going to get to the bottom of what makes this guy tick. And then in 2 weeks, we'll do Barnes after that. So that'll be great. That'll be great fun.
Who else you got coming up that you're going to interview?
I'm going to bring in, Rich Barris is after you. So Barris is very excited. He's bringing his guitar. I don't know. He's going to play some licks.
Oh, he can actually play.
He's going to play. I don't know what.
And you've heard his UFO story, right?
Yes, I'm going to ask him to reiterate that story too, because I have my own. We've compared notes on UFOs before, but I'll ask him that again. A bunch of different guys. I got an anti-woke writer from who left Bill Maher's employ. Show business friends of mine basically are going to be coming in. People who actually work in the business, Robert. Musicians and filmmakers, guys you never heard of, but writers behind the scenes, stuff like that.
Another person that Hunley introduced me to were the behavior panel guys who helped out, by the way, in the jury selection in the Shara trial.
Oh, wow.
Man, do you think, I think at one level,
who did you have, Chase and Scott or Greg and Scott?
It was Greg. I was trying to figure out, who do you think would be more intimidating to be interrogated by? After hanging out with Greg enough, I think I would be most intimidated by Greg.
They're afraid of Greg. The rest of the panel's afraid of Greg. Greg ran SEER school in the Army. Keep that in mind. I mean, his whole purpose was to break special forces people.
Yeah.
I mean, which one's Greg? The tall, thin guy, Eric?
Yeah, the bald.
He's the guy the military would call in if they needed to stop a terror attack and they needed him to interrogate.
That guy. Yeah, he seems to be the tough guy.
His ability to maintain detail, like over 100, like tiny little things. He's got all his little notes. It's just unbelievable. Extraordinary. And I mean, Chase kind of freaks you out a little bit because the mind control.
He's a little spooky, that guy.
Yeah, I mean, nice guy, sweetheart of a guy, and a super level genius. Same with Scott Rouse. I don't know the Mark guy as well because he's over in England. But who else do you got coming up, Eric?
Well, next week I have Eric Abinante, who is with Blaze, but he did a film on the history of voter fraud in the United States. So it's just a interview going over voter fraud. Interesting tidbit. I don't know, Mark, if we've talked about it, but Edgar Allan Poe, they think, was killed because of it's a process that they had where they remember when we did the Gangs of New York, where we talked about how they recruit the people and they beat them up and say, go vote.
Yeah.
Coopering. I think it was called Coopering or something like that.
Anyway, named after the barrel, I think, the Cooper barrel.
Right.
They put him in the barrel too, and they rolled him around. That was also a thing they did.
Okay. Maybe. Yeah. But anyway,
it's very disorienting.
There's a theory that Edgar Allan Poe actually was murdered or was killed as part of that.
I should do a hush then on that. I got to look that up. I'd never heard that. That the master horror writer was himself the victim of a murder.
Yeah, and also the inventor of the detective novel.
Did you see the one that's like loosely Poe based that has what's his name? The really good Christian Bale, I think. I think Christian Bale's in it. It was like a direct. It's like one of the streaming channels released it, but it was really good. It's like old West Point, early 1800s.
I have seen that. It's really good. Yes, I have seen that. Yes, fascinating.
I didn't see the ending coming. I like the subculture.
Right,
but
it looked beautiful. Really it was in a weird era. It was like upstate New York. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, Christian Bale. He's like a military coroner or something.
Yeah, they bring him in as a special investigator to figure out what's going on, and it was well done.
All right, well, cool. All right, that gets through the rest of these. Nick Giusti, another great show. Appreciate you guys. Thank you, Nick. Nick again. Let me see. Really torn this weekend. Do I get paid $5,000 to riot and get a new TV or a pair of shoes, or do I stay home and watch Trump's military parade and watch these rioters get stamped out by our military?
Something tells me they're not going to riot in D.C.
Something it's supposed to be raining, which is actually good news for Trump and the parade and that.
For us, we have perfect riot weather. If you want to come out here, highly recommended. A great place to riot. Incredible culinary foods of different nations. They bring in the trucks now, the food trucks, Robert, during the riot.
Okay, so you have one truck with the masks.
They had women selling Mexican flags. Another guy was selling beer out of a cart. Another guy was selling water during the riots. It's like being at Dodger Stadium, bro. You get everything here during a riot.
Oh, nice. Alex Davy Duke. Barnes, you've met Alex. He was at all of your meetups and our meetup this past year. Insurrection and riots. Where's Bondi? Where's she arresting the NGO organizers? Where's Cash? I blame Trump once again. He hires his enemies or morons. It's now or never. Let me see. What would Eisenhower do? Hint amnesty to nannies?
Right.
Amnesty. Eisenhower would have sent in General Edwin A. Walker to suppress the riots.
Let me see. Life of Brian. So how do we impeach, convict, and imprison Trump, Graham, and Levin for this garbage?
We'll see what happens with Graham. I mean, I think with Trump, he does have loyalists in those positions at the FBI and the DOJ, which will probably satisfy him. But I don't think they will get done on their own accord what needs to happen. I mean, this is the second time he's said, please do something about Tina Peters.
What about the bill?
Why hasn't something happened already?
Will this bill come out of the Senate, or what shape is this bill going to be in?
I think so. I think ultimately, once Elon's efforts to go against it failed, I don't see it. You see how there's a lot of money in there for tax cuts, a lot of money in there for immigration enforcement. That matters more to the Trump base than cutting the debt. And I
agree. That's how I feel about it. Yeah.
And Elon's on the apology tour anyway right now.
He's on the. Did he have a mental breakdown?
I think he did.
Who, Paul or Massey?
No, Musk.
Oh, Musk. I think Musk.
Dr. Drew told me he had a hypomania incident.
Well, that wouldn't surprise me. I mean, the dude's on the spectrum.
Yeah.
Politics is new to him. He's under threat from every different direction.
How about personal pressure from a million things?
Oh, yeah. Oh, exactly.
I mean, just what he's been through the ringer, Robert.
Also, this is new to him, right?
Yeah.
I mean, business, thinking that you can be as disruptive in politics as you are in business, seeing the example of Trump probably misled him into thinking it would be easier than it was.
Did he tackle the Treasury Secretary?
I think so.
I find that hard to believe.
I find that hard to believe.
I mean? You got the gay guy and the autist. It's like a joke or something, right? I can't see those. What are they doing? Slapping each other? I mean, come on.
I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, well, Elon's. I don't know. Have you read any of his biography? I
have not. I'm going to get it and read it. I'm going to get it.
He's got a dark upbringing. I mean, he's from South Africa, and it was not patty cake times.
Robert, I highly recommend David Mamet's new essay collection called The Disenlightenment. You will love it.
Oh yeah, I definitely want to have Mamet on for a sidebar.
So do I. I asked him to come on here. So good luck getting him. That would be great too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because my favorite.
You'd love Mamet. I mean,
My fairest book of his is actually 3 Uses of the Knife.
Okay.
I consider it revolutionary.
This one's unbelievable, Robert. The new book is unfucking believable.
Yeah,
I couldn't put it down.
That's fantastic.
And Henry Johnson movie.com for people who want to see the new movie with Shia LaBeouf and my old friend Chris Bauer. A classic Mamet movie. Guy goes to prison, 3 acts, blah, blah, blah. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic Mamet.
So he was able to get a movie made. Because I assume even
it was a play. It was a fairly long-running play in Venice here. And then they stuck together and made it into a movie, the same crew.
I think I am wearing the shirt that Scott gave me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You've got the test pattern shirt. John S. with a super sticker. Thank you. Fletcher Boy. Mark, any local media picking up the story that Karen Bass ordered LAPD to stand down, allegedly?
No. They're trumpeting her storyline about ending the raids. They are going full pregnant Mexican woman in Walmart storylines, the missing husband storylines. My kid was born here and now he has no parent storyline. No. They were caught in the middle there for a couple of nights. They didn't know which way to go. And now, because I think part of their own political opinions and the news idea of it's better to have a crying Mexican woman than to cover some blank politics, they've gone that way.
All right. Well, this super chat is a perfect tee off for Dr. Evil 814. What kind of coffee are you drinking today, Eric? That is a fantastic question. And did you know, Barnes, that we have our own coffee?
Magic Bullet, Barnes.
Yes, and that is what I've been drinking today is the brand new Magic Bullet Blend, which is a richer, more kind of mellow blend versus our original Supreme Breakfast Blend, which is a bit brighter in flavor, a bit more robust. So between the two of them, you think like Barnes might like the Magic Bullet Blend. It'd go well with cigars, kind of atmosphere, a little bit smoky, nice flavor. Supreme Breakfast Blend, that's going to be like Mark is going to be at, getting up early, in your face, chasing after it. And you can always scan the link in the middle. I do recommend, if you guys get the coffee, that you consider buying 4 because you get free shipping. And believe me, the shipping is ridiculous for anything now. I've shipped these coins that we have for up to $10 for a coin. It's insane with how much shipping is.
Robert, that biltong guy is sending me a truckload of biltong because of Viva. Do you eat this stuff?
Oh, it's really, really good.
All right.
There's a huge fan of it.
Hey, biltong guy, you can sponsor us too. Send the super chats. We'll read it off.
He's sending me a truckload of biltong. I've never tried it. I mean, I was over at Viva's house. I didn't try it when I was visiting the Vivas. They were eating it like it was going out of style.
Mark, why do Jewish people like bagels? I've always been curious about that. It's like there seems to be a correlation. Am I right? There's a correlation between bagel shops and Jewish population. It seems like there is.
Well, first of all, it's easy to make. If you have a bagel shop, you can't possibly go out of business. You think about the odds of have you ever seen a bagel shop boarded up?
That's true.
Right. An idiot could run a bagel shop. Put it that way. And if you know how to make them, you can make, X amount of money. And it's a type of bakery or baked goods that people come in every day to get it. I guess in France, it would be a baguette. You'd go into the bakery and get a French baguette. But if you were in New York, it would be a bagel shop. I mean, these Einstein bagel chains seem to do very well.
That's true.
They close at like 2:00 in the afternoon because their fresh bagels are gone. It seems like a morning business. Seems like you don't have to pay anybody past.
I didn't know if there was something that goes into bagels that corresponds with some.
Well, Larry King famously opened up a bagel shop in Beverly Hills, and he said the reason that there's no good bagels in LA is because of the water, which is radically different than New York water. And he was technically and chemically correct. He imported from FedEx gallons and gallons of water to make the bagels every day with water from New York until it became economically unfeasible. And he's the only guy that ever failed in the bagel business was Larry King.
Fascinating.
Well, there are pizza shops that have that same argument.
Yes, we have a Mulberry Street here that's owned by what's her name, the girl who was in Raging Bull, who played Robert De Niro's girlfriend in Raging Bull. She opened up Mulberry Pizza here in Beverly Hills, and they apparently bring in water from New York.
Yeah, there have been a lot of Coke issues and Pepsi issues are due to the disparity in local water supply.
Yes, absolutely. If you drink the Mexican Coke, it tastes completely different than regular Coca-Cola.
Well, it has real sugar instead of corn syrup.
Yeah,
that's a big part of it.
Same with a lot of Cuban, because they get Cuban sugar that goes, and that's why Cuban rum, for example, is much better than non-Cuban rum. In my, and then somebody said the bagels can count as unleavened bread. Does that matter?
That's not true. No, it's not unleavened bread. Nice try, nice try, but that ain't gonna cut it during Passover.
I think flatbreads are unleavened, but I don't.
The only unleavened bread is called matzah, and that's what we're forced to eat because they didn't have time for the yeast to rise when they were fleeing the Pharaoh, who chased them anyway. And David Mamet famously said the other night he was on with, he's been on with a bunch of different people. Victor Davis Hanson had him, but he was talking about the fact that, 80% of the Jews vote Democratic. How do you explain that? And he said 80% of the Jews remained behind when Moses freed them as slaves from the Pharaoh. Only 20% went with them. So he said it's an old tradition.
Oh, that's funny.
It was hysterical.
That is funny.
All right, Paul Henry, voter fraud is ripe as one of America's untold stories. Where did the millions of voters go from 20 to 2024?
Well, we don't do stories. Have you guys done the LBJ?
The box 47?
Yeah, I mean, we covered it.
Yeah, that's we did talk about that. That's also in the interview that's coming out next week too.
Okay.
And the movie. So yeah, definitely that. And I think Louisiana's in there. There are some famous cases, but
of course. I mean, Box 47 is probably the most famous American voter fraud story, I would say.
The LBJ one with Connolly, it's just that they got taken, and him and Connolly, kind of like Nixon with what's his name, with his lawyer, said, we'll get him next time. You could sue, but like nobody ever sues because there's a next time, Robert.
Oh, someone asked in the chat, do you have a hat? You have any hats, Eric?
I don't really do hats.
Oh, okay.
No, he doesn't do hats. Bob and I do hats. We're like hat people.
I have like a AUS ball cap.
Yeah, say you should have some merch.
Yeah, we do have some merch. Well, I'm wearing our merch, and then I have an X hat. Speaking of Elon Musk,
is that for Elon's company?
Yeah.
Oh,
that's interesting.
Okay. Yeah,
I don't really. In general, though, I just don't really wear them.
I didn't realize you'd written those huge books. Those books are massive. Are they just about IT stuff?
Yeah. I mean, they're good nighttime reading for most people. Very effective. Well, the really bad one was my wife helped me edit because she's a librarian, English major, etc. So she would follow behind me, and I wrote a whole extensive chapter on programming, action script in Flash, and she just was like, I can't even. She could barely make it through. She was like, this is so dense and thick and boring. It is amazing.
I had a commenter on my new channel say, I have to paint the hinges white on my wall unit behind me because the Spectrum people have followed me from America's Untold Stories, and we are insisting. And the guy wrote, "You didn't think we wouldn't find you, did you, Mark? We're here. We're the Spectrum people."
Hey, these are the same people that get that go crazy about my door.
Oh yeah,
being open.
Yeah,
they're like, somebody can come through that. So some people really flip out.
Wow. Well, we've got Musk. He's the Spectrum in chief, I guess.
Yeah, I know a good bit about old Boss Crump in Memphis. Yep, ran a tight political machine there for a long time.
That's got to be better than whatever's in
was
Memphis
replaced by the funeral home owner whose son is now like a CNN commentator. Ran a black political machine that replaced the Crump political machine.
Did you tell me, Eric, the guy on CNN is the nephew of Neil Sedaka?
Yes. Harry Enton, their
pollster
guy, who is entertaining as hell to watch. I actually like watching the guy because he's like.
He started out at 538. He's gone a little bit more independent, and he tries to be more objective by showing where Trump is doing well and things like. He's not a complete hack like everybody else.
Right. Well, I'm gonna have Barris on in about 3 weeks, and we'll get his opinion on that guy.
Barris, I think Barris likes him because Barris pulls him up and talks about him. And I've never heard Barris say like he's a bad guy or anything. Just kind of like hey, look, Harry Enton's doing this or whatever. I mean, Harry's not doing the polls. Harry's just presenting other people's polls. So.
Right.
He's a lefty and he's a bit of a hack, but nowhere near as bad as everybody else. So he's willing to point out that immigrants, for example, have massively shifted towards Trump because they favor Trump on immigration, for example.
I agree. By the way, Barnes, when are you officially in Tennessee?
Don't know. So kind of depend on certain things are in flux. But I mean, we're going to have the conference 1776 Law Center inaugural conference and fundraiser mid-August in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Body language panel is going to be there. Richard Barris is coming in. My brother's coming in. Lexi Anderson, young lawyer, is coming in. Brooke Jackson, Grace Shara's family may be coming in. People that 1776 Law Center has represented in one way, shape, or form.
I might be there.
Like master classes on FOIA, master classes on whatever else.
Is this a type of America First movement that you're a law American?
The idea is to have like a populist place that supports legal cases both in the court of law and the court of public opinion, because none exist. Everybody else is either corporate controlled, sugar daddy controlled, or on the left.
Or those white shoe guys.
Yeah, exactly. And they don't care about a lot of populist causes. They were late to the game on Covington kids. They were late to the game on Kyle Rittenhouse, late to the game in parts even for President Trump. So it's finding late to the game on Amos Miller, the Amish farmer. So a lot of those cases that need public support, and the thought process is to make it crowdfunding as much as possible. So it's not dependent on one or two big donors. So you're not hijacked or handicapped. You just have broad-based support as much as possible, and it has an educational role. So like teaching people how to use the Freedom of Information Act, teaching people. You guys could might do some America's Untold Stories FOIA request. You know what I mean? I think to find certain things that you would know probably better than most people.
No, I have done it as a journalist. I mean, it's not my first trip to the rodeo.
To do it on behalf of America's Untold Stories, certain specific sub categories of information and intel that are still being withheld. And then you have the social media platform now to highlight when they don't give you adequate responses, because the people running FOIA at the DOJ are still the same Biden era people.
Yeah, Fenton's having all kinds of troubles with them, and he's been FOIAing, and now he's suing DOJ over even the JFK files. I mean, there's estimates that there may be 3 million additional files, according to Judicial Watch, that are untouched.
That apparently nobody has looked at, right? That were sitting in the bottom of the archive.
They wrote to him. The archive said, "We'll get to them when we can. We're overwhelmed, and stop calling us." I mean, he had the craziest response from Naris saying, we'll get to them maybe in the next 10 years.
That's insane.
Dude, I mean, hire some people. I mean, get some congressional money and hire somebody.
Yep.
Right. By the way, I do have a Rumble rant that snuck in.
Sweet.
Cancel PK. I don't think OnlyFans Barnes AI would be making much money.
You'd be surprised what plays over in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, you're talking about the Saudi Arabia and all that. I can't help but think about a world famous yacht girl, allegedly.
Oh yeah,
Who lives in California now with her husband. That we want to get back to England.
Yep.
Yeah. Fletcher Boy. Robert Ophelia Ford was the barroom queen in Memphis.
Yeah, this is the Ford family. You're right. Yeah. But what is the black family that ran a funeral home that took over from Crump's political machine, ran their own political machine, is the Ford political machine. So I didn't know there was a reference they're saying there's a reference in the Rolling Stones song, right?
Yeah, I think he had to delete because of Me Too, not Me Too or wokeness, the Brown Sugar song, because that became politically incorrect.
Oh man.
Which is funny because if I recall, Mick Jagger learned to move by Tina Turner.
Yeah, that's part of it. Definitely.
Yeah, massive blues fans. I mean, they really love the blues.
They were like a blues cover band, really.
They really were.
At the beginning. I mean,
and that's how the blues heavily influenced. And not a bad TV show, Duster, is on. It's like it's filmed based in the 70s. So, so even as it's got like an Indian FBI agent, a black female agent, but it's not like trying to be like woke. It's just how that would work in the early 1970s.
Well, we've been watching Poly Family here, which is on just started, and it's another episode tonight. It's a quad, 2 couples with multiple children who live in Oregon and up in Eugene, I think, and their battles against the system to recognize their problems that they have. They want to adopt the other kids. They go to all these different problems arise because they live together, and their rules are the men switch women every night, and they have to. The women don't go anywhere. The men switch every night.
But that's what Ricada was trying to do for a little bit.
Is that true, Robert? Is it?
I don't know anything about that.
I don't know anything about that.
No, he's not denying it. He had a thing
I know nothing. Disclaim all responsibility.
I don't know, but there, it's funny. That's like the hippie Mormons.
Yeah, they're the hippie Mormons. You're right. That's exactly right. They're socialist Mormons, and they have their round circle that they discuss everything with. They all have to agree with stuff.
That's right, Eric. Did you ever interact with? Because the Mormons in northern Arizona are some of your traditional Mormons, you might say. Did you ever?
They have to say old Mormon. Or old book Mormon or something like that. No, when I was growing up, I had a friend who he and his brother were there, and their cousin was always running around with them or whatever. I was walking around, and then one day the friend told me, he goes, "Oh yeah, that's not really my cousin. That's my half brother." Dad went back and forth between the 2 houses. I never, I'm not going to say the name or anything else because I don't want to, cause any harm. And I never told anybody about it.
Oh, yeah. I was curious. What was your reaction? Was your reaction like, oh, that's a little weird? Or okay.
I mean, when your mom's in a freaking cult, what are you going to say?
You're talking about George Armstrong, the World Church of
Herbert W. Armstrong.
Herbert W. Armstrong. I'm sorry.
God, but that wasn't the Cleveland-based Church of God, right?
Is that the Cleveland-based, Eric?
Was it the Cleveland one?
I thought they were based in Cleveland.
Yeah, one based in Indiana, one based in Cleveland.
I think it might have been Indiana, but
I think yours.
Look, I'll tell you right now, Robert. One of the biggest supporters of Jim Jones and the People's Temple when they moved to San Francisco was a guy named Harvey Milk.
Oh yeah,
a huge People's Temple supporter. He loves the People's Temple.
The headquarters was Pasadena for Worldwide Church of God.
Oh, for your
that's why I know about
that's
it.
That's a more knockoff because there's the Pentecostal Church of God. That's more rooted. There's one rooted in Indiana, one rooted in Cleveland, but then there were branches off that were more cultish by nature.
Yeah, he was born in Iowa.
Do they speak in tongues at your church?
No.
Okay.
No.
So it didn't come from that branch.
It wasn't Pentecostal from the impression I got.
A lot of the Church of God denominations are Pentecostal.
Wasn't he like one of the first mega churches, Eric? That's the impression I got.
It was pretty big church. Yeah. I mean, it would fill a stadium.
Wow.
I'm not kidding. This was mega, Robert. He was more mega than Snake Handler.
Right.
But and it was like when he came to town, it, filled the stadium, but then there was like a large church, and whoever was preaching or whatever. I was busy reading Stephen King and not really paying much attention.
Were the preachers any good? Like some Pentecostal preachers.
I didn't really pay attention.
He didn't pay attention, but as you know, in the episode that I did, I used to make the custom shirts for the Right Reverend Jimmy Swaggart.
Oh yeah,
and
you know who he's related to, right?
Of course, I mean
Mickey
Jerry and Mickey. And,
that's a fascinating story.
No, I talked to him about it. I remember one time he came in and Jerry was in rehab for the millionth time, and I said, "How's Jerry doing?" And he said, "He has turned his back on the Lord, Mark, and his soul has been possessed by the devil." Jerry has.
I didn't realize until the family connections. By the way, they were like thieves and crooks back in the day when they were kids in that neighborhood. But I didn't realize until I heard that connection how much I used to love listening to Swaggart.
It was poetic. It was poetic.
It's musical.
Yes,
he's using musical.
Well, he
I was
play
like,
also. He also played piano during his stuff.
Yeah, he could have easily been like a blues guy or something else.
Jerry could have been a preacher.
Yeah,
Jerry could have been one of the preachers, or Mickey.
Yep.
Amazing family. Absolutely amazing family.
Oh, definitely.
I think we did an episode on Swaggart, Eric, or
yeah, we did on Swaggart. And speaking of preachers or whatever, Sam Kinison, if I recall,
Kinison came
church,
from
and
that.
that's what that was a lot of what his presentation came out of.
Right. Kinison was a Texas Baptist preacher.
Also, a lot of original podcasters. There's a huge amount who come from the church.
Wow.
Who work in YouTube and podcasting because they, it's a free outlet. They get used to recording and doing audio video presentations for the church. That trains a lot of people.
There's somebody in the chat that I didn't know anything about this. I grew up in this. I grew up in the evangelical Christian Protestant tradition. Pentecostal churches right down the street. I grew up in the Independent Baptist.
How many churches were in your town?
Oh man, this was Chattanooga. Chattanooga used to be called the buckle of the Bible Belt.
Right.
So like the way I used to describe is the difference between Chattanooga and Wisconsin when I went up to law school in Wisconsin. I was like, in Wisconsin, they invite you out for a beer. That's how you get to know the neighborhood, the community. They say, "Hey, come down to the local pub," because there's one like every other block. There's a local neighborhood pub in Wisconsin.
People don't realize that Brooklyn was called City of Churches, for many years. I mean, it had more churches than any city in the country.
There's some beautiful churches, actually.
Yeah.
There's an Airbnb in Brooklyn now that's the old firehouse.
Okay. I think I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, I stayed there last time. It was fascinating. Though the dude that ran was a little bit, freaky, creepy looking. But so it was. But in Chattanooga, you get invited to Sunday school. Now, not so much now, but that's how it used to be. That's how. I mean, we were, and it was not just Baptist; it was Independent Baptist. So there's a reason why the Scopes trial took place in Dayton, Tennessee, right up the road from Chattanooga. So that area was a hot button of evangelical Christianity, but particularly Protestant and especially predominantly Independent Baptist.
I was going to say it would be a lot of Baptists there.
Yeah.
I would think.
And then second to that were Pentecostals. And that's because of the Church of God being located up in Cleveland, which is a half an hour up the road. So
now, wait, the Pentecostals, are they the snake handlers?
Yeah.
Now there is my psychology professor was immersed with them because they're just about an hour south up in Sand Mountain and other locations from Chattanooga. So what's fascinating is he was very sympathetic with the snake handlers. He said that, he goes, what they're doing is still more reasonable than rock climbing. And what he meant by that was they go into church and by testing their faith, putting their hand in a jar with poisonous snakes, when they come out alive, they feel more alive than everybody. And his point was psychologically, it has the exact same reason why do people climb dangerous rocks that have a 1 in 8 chance of killing you? It's because of the thrill of what the psyche, like you can measure it in the neurons in the brain. He goes, that's the same thing for people that are snake handling. They take a particular religious text that says you can be poisoned by a snake and not die. One of these more conventional theologians was recently on, what's that Danny guy's name? He's like a Joe Rogan knockoff. Danny something another. He has a huge podcast.
Oh, Danny Jones.
Danny Jones.
Concrete podcast at one time.
Yes. And now it's like the Danny Jones podcast.
What about the phony surgery pastors who do like the phony surgery? Jim Jones got into that, actually doing the phony surgery, taking them into the bathroom, pulling stuff out of their guts, bringing the guts out. It was like chicken parts and everything. I mean, holy crap, was that complicated.
Variation. Now, hold on, weren't you an actor in one of the ones, you know, that show that was like part oil based and part religious based, or maybe it was a movie. I thought you were like had a cameo role or something.
Oh, Carnival on HBO.
Yeah, that's it, Carnival.
yeah.
Yes. Remember, because that's loosely the Pentecostal.
Yes, it was. Yeah. Yep. And it had dwarves and midgets and lesbians in it. Dude, it was a weird, freaky show because the people who were cast in it were actually freaky people and freaks from the carnival.
Yeah, well,
you know, they were just, you go over to craft services and there's a dwarf with a beard. You go, can I get the milk? And he goes, okay, here it is. Here is the milk.
That was my local lesbian coffee shop in Wisconsin, in Madison. I was like, the nice thing is I don't even need to drink the coffee to wake up. I just have to go there and look around.
Right. Just, holy crap, what did I stumble into here?
And bearded ladies and everything else. Like, whoa.
Somehow the Joker's smile got onto Karen Bass's face from the movie. I don't know if people noticed
it's been
that.
Imprinted forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So creepy.
Oh, yeah. But the best, if you want the best honest representation, in my view, of the Pentecostal tradition, Robert Duvall's movie, The Apostle.
Oh, The Apostle is great. What fantastic. It took him years to make that, and he finally directed it and made it and starred in it himself.
Yep.
I mean, it's one of those great stories.
Other than the black church tradition, the best preachers, in my view, come out of the Pentecostal tradition.
Yeah.
That they're much more dramatic.
Similar.
Huh?
They're similar.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah. It's a shared tradition, shared approach, very expressive, very interactive between the audience and the preacher. And it's like I grew up watching a lot of them and learned a lot of my speaking style from them. I mean, I found them, you know, I used to watch Jesse Jackson.
Well, don't forget the black music that came out of there, Whitney Houston and so many others that came out of the Southern black choirs.
Yes, exactly.
Elvis Presley. Sorry.
Yes.
Little Richard. I mean,
did you go to synagogue when you were a kid, or were you not like?
No, we did.
And what's that like? That's one I've been to, like Orthodox services. I've been to but I haven't been to a synagogue service. What's that like? Like the Orthodox, like Russian Orthodox, there's no sitting down. You stand up.
Yeah, no. We were raised conservative, which is it's in Hebrew, but I mean Reformed. Lenny Bruce once talked about Reformed Judaism, and he did a spoof on the rabbi who was talking with a British accent. He was kind of like, you know, preaching in British, and then off camera he goes and talks to him, and he's got a Yiddish accent, which was the Lenny Bruce bit. But no, the conservative is, you know, people who don't wear yarmulkes on the outside, you know, but you go to services and it's not separated like. The Orthodox separate men and women. They've got their own special thing. Conservative is a step down from that. And it's between Orthodox and Reform. That's the bulk of Jews in America are conservative, in case anybody wants to know.
And then Hasidic is like one
That's a
level
cult. That's like the Amish. The Hasidic would be like the Amish. Orthodox Jews is, again, a smaller amount than the conservatives. The bulk of American Jews are conservative Jews. There's the Reform Jews that's also... They don't even they do it all in English. It's kind of like pointless.
Oh, yeah.
Owen Jones is saying one of the funniest parts of Hillbilly Elegy was JD's Mima describing his father's conversion to a Pentecostal church in Christianity.
Yeah. I love a lot of the Pentecostal. I used to say that.
I mean, you know, Jackie Mason was a cantor when he first started. There's a rabbi and there's a cantor. A cantor comes in who sings like almost a professional singer who sings in Hebrew. The songs that are in the book. The rabbi just gives you this, you know, it's like a regular preacher, but the cantor comes in and actually sings. And that's what Jackie Mason and Jackie Mason's father, I think, were cantors. In fact, he went on the High Holy Days in New York. Jackie Mason would become a cantor again at a small synagogue on the Upper West Side of Manhattan.
I got to find a synagogue to watch the service. I'm curious what that's like because I've seen almost all.
Well, I can only tell you this: when I was bar mitzvah, there were so many kids my age. We had to have a triple bar mitzvah, and you have to go up and you have to read from the Torah, you know, with a guy pointing with a stick of, you know, each paragraph, and you're trained for over a year as a kid when you're 12. How to read this in Hebrew, and they take out a passage for you and you rehearse it over and over again. They tape record it, and then you go in, and the audience is so big because it was a triple bar mitzvah, and we were such a tough crowd that the other families were heckling us. So when you got up there, you were being heckled by the other kids. It was a rough bar mitzvah era, and then they were so backed up that they did 3 in the same day, Robert, in the same synagogue.
Is there still any video of young Mark Groubert doing his bar mitzvah?
I don't think there was videoed back then. We didn't
Oh,
have
no, you
that.
said recorded.
It was audio recorded to train you. And then you would actually record probably somewhere. Yeah. You have to sing into this little tape recorder until the rabbi felt it was good enough, for prime time, I guess. You had to go to like after Hebrew school. After school, you went to Hebrew school, and then the 12th year you trained for your bar mitzvah. And then everybody gives you money, and it's a real party.
Cool.
Wow. All right. Well, we're going to be shifting over to locals.
What the hell goes on over there?
All kinds of stuff. And just
and that's unstructured.locals.com, right?
That's right. Unstructured.locals.com, where if you miss this show live and you're on the spectrum, you could watch it without commercials on unstructured.locals.com and your head won't explode.
There you go. So that's all the reason you could possibly need to head over there. And we're going to go there now where we can have more uncensored talk and get
this will be completely uncensored once we got over there. We can use foul language. We could talk about self-deletion, a lot of stuff you can't talk about.
Use the actual word.
The actual words, which I've now forgotten because Hunley's beating it out of my head.
Good. I was so proud of you earlier when you were describing and you said such and such is doing a really bad thing. And I was like, oh, Mark, I'm so proud.
Anti-storytelling. I was so embarrassed.
So proud of you.
People called me up mocking me after that. I mean, it's so dark.
The best I've ever seen at it, or who takes it to a ludicrous level, is Jeremy from The Quartering. That guy has completely shifted his vocabulary, and he comes up with this like, that's where I first heard unaliving.
Unaliving, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Oh yeah, it is hilarious. So, but we'll get over there and actually use real language.
Oh, great! Let's go. Come on.